Hey friends, what if Naruto x Nunnally x Tianzi x movie? In an empty dark space, loud, ear-shattering sounds of explosions and thunderclaps were heard as in the middle of the emptiness were 5 individuals engaged in heavy combat. Come on. We are almost there. Cheered a young man covered in yellow spiritual flames and 9 black orbs surrounding his body. This youngster is none other than Naruto Uzumaki using the 6 paths in Jutsu mode. She should be running out of options, a dark-haired teen agreed as he coughed out some blood. After wiping some of it from his chin, he lifted his face, showing his unique eyes. One was a red-colored eye with an odd, almost in a kaleidoscope-style 6-pointed star with 3 black triangles in them, while the other eye was light lavender in color, with a ripple-like effect of solid lines around, that also had 6 tomos with 3 on the first 2 lines after the pupil. This is Sasuke Uchiha, a dangerous criminal known throughout elemental nations, but currently he is an ally for Naruto, fighting against a powerful enemy. Sasuke, do you need healing? A pink-haired woman asked in concern as she had her hands ready with green energy to use if needed to save her comrades. This was Sakura Haruno, the student of Tsunade's Senju, who was making sure she was ready to provide medical assistance and did her best to keep up with her teammates. One more attack and we should be able to stop this, a silver-haired man said with hair that seemed to defy gravity as it pointed upward, with no kind of help, such as gel, just like Sasuke's. His eyes were red with 3 tomos in them. You hear the Kagaya, we will not let you do as you please. Before them, floating in the air with the grace of a goddess, was the strongest foe they have ever faced, a pale-skinned woman with delicate facial features fit for royalty. She had extremely long, sweeping white hair, she possessed white clear eyes, and her eyebrows were cut very short and round, a symbol of nobility, with her lips being rose-red in color. She wore a high-collared hime kimono which had tomo running down the center and edges of the gown, along also adorned with intricate gold and purple lines. The name of this individual was Kagaya Otsutsuki, the mother of chakra, the mastermind of a scheme that nearly caused the destruction of all of elemental nations. Her dress and body showed signs of abuse from the attacks she suffered from the team. I cannot allow myself to be beaten by the likes of you, not when I'm so close to victory, she said in a calm and regal tone fit for her status. Just because you think you know what's best doesn't mean it's right. Naruto shouted as his team nodded at his words. You're almost out of chakra, I can feel it. You can't fight much longer compared to the rest of us, he said while popping a medicine pill to heal some of his wounds sustained during the battle. Well, we got some pick-me-ups, although Sakura could make them taste a bit better oof. Then you make it, aka the pink-haired girl roared, hating how Naruto's dense and brutally honest habits were still working at a time like this. Perhaps you are right. The team instantly turned to the woman who sneered at the lesser being she saw them as. You might have the upper hand right now, but this doesn't mean that I'm out of options. I shall retreat for now, but do not mistake this as my defeat. I will return once my power is replenished, and when I do I will end your miserable existence, she stated as a black portal opened up behind her. Stop her. Kakashi ordered while his eyes widened in horror. If she leaves now, there was no way they would be able to escape the Senpou realm. Sasuke's eyes glowed with power as purple flames ignited around him. A skeleton-like hand came from the ground and gently grabbed them. Now Sasuke. Naruto shouted as the dark-haired shinobi made the hand throw them towards the Kagaya's location. While in the air, Naruto created a blue sphere in one of his hands, while Sasuke straightened out his hand as blue lighting danced around it. You fools. Ignorant children who dare to raise their hands against a goddess. Kagaya screamed in anger as she grabbed both of the male's hands, stopping their attacks, only to cry out in pain the next moment when Sakura leaped over her teammates and punched Kagaya's pristine face with one of her chakra-empowered fists. Soon after the woman was tackled by Kakashi who prepared to deliver the final blow, but Kagaya wasn't ready to go down just yet. Before she hit the ground, she threw herself and him into the portal she had created. Kakashi-sensei. The 3 teens screamed before rushing into the portal themselves. Once they went through it, they saw Kakashi wrestling with the ancestral woman as she tried to get free from his grasp and strike back. This proved to be a mistake, as in her anger the self-proclaimed goddess let her control over the portal. All around them the 2 black tunnels started shifting. Black portals opening and closing constantly as they continued to pass by dozens of them. Why must you all deny peace? She shouted, her calm composure from earlier completely forgotten. I will. A punch from Kakashi interrupted her. I will. Then a kick from Sasuke. I will. Then from the pain of having her hair pulled hard by Sakura. Will you stow? What are you doing? Kagaya deadpanned as Naruto stuck a finger in her nose. The rest of the team sweat dropped as the said blonde simply shrugged his shoulders. What? I couldn't think of anything else so I improvised. He stated with a pout, like a kid being told not to curse in public, using the moment of distraction to her advantage. Kagaya opened her eyes wide and unleashed powerful shockwave, pushing her opponents away from her, but before she could prepare another attack, she gasped in horror as her hand started to fade. No, she quickly looked at her other hand and saw that it was also fading. Fear started to creep into her face. No. The members of Team 7 looked in slight horror as the woman started to fade out from their sights. Said woman quickly moved forward to where Sasuke and Naruto were, trying to reach out to them. "Please, don't let me go," she pleaded while they looked at her with shocked expressions. "I was so close, please help me, I don't want it to end like this," she managed to plead for one final time before completely vanishing from existence. "Naruto, look out." Sakura cried out worry. "Huh?" The blonde tried to regain his focus, but was too late as a strange beam of light hit him in the head. The beam shattered upon making contact and was strong enough to knock him out. Like a doll with its strings cut off, Naruto started to fall into one of the black portals. Sasuke tried to shout out before he too was hit upside his head by another beam of light that came out of nowhere. Rendered unconsciousness, he was unable to do anything as he also starting falling into a different black portal. No. Sakura and Kakashi chased after the two knockout members of the team, but they didn't make it in time to stop the two from falling into the portals. "Sakura, get Sasuke. He'll go after Naruto," the silver-haired man ordered before reaching out towards the portal, and then, everything was covered in a blinding white light. XXXXXXXXXXX. XXXXXXXXXX. A young boy at the age of 9 wearing a black and orange suit that was nearly ripped apart woke up to the hot rays of sunlight hitting him. He groaned as he slowly stood up. "Where am I?" he said in confusion before a black fabric fell from his head, showing a metal plate attached to it with a strange symbol that he had never seen engraved on it. After inspecting the strange item, the young boy started to look around in hopes to find something, anything, that would allow him to understand his current predicament, but all that he saw was mountains of hot sand, as far as I can see. The only thing that stood out in the whole scenery was a small oasis that had several palm trees and a small pond of water. Quickly walking over, he sat down in the shade of the trees, saving himself from the blazing heat that would have burned his body. "Hey you." He heard a rough voice shout out from not too far. Turning into the direction the voice came from, Naruto spotted few brutish-looking men leering at him with dark glints in their eyes. "Seems that we found a good slave to sell. I can tell from his Britannian looks that he will make a one-of-a-kind slave among the Chinese royalties." The blonde glared at them, not really sure on what they meant. But he quickly noticed how they were slowly taking out their swords. "Don't resist or cause any trouble, and he'll make sure to sell you to a pretty woman that could use a cute slave like you." The child snarled at them in anger before quickly lunging forward, shocking the slavers at how fast the young child was. By the time they were ready to defend themselves, Naruto was already upon them. Few moments later the sands were drinking fresh red liquid. After the deed was done, the teen wore new clothes and took all of the slavers' possessions. Returning back to the shade of palm trees, the blonde started to wonder where he was, and more importantly who he was. XXXXXXXXXXX. Months later. XXXXXXXXXX. Munch. The young blonde boy ate some noodles from a bag as he was surrounded by a dozen of dead bodies. The foul stench of corpses lingered in the air, while the smell of blood nauseated his nose. He didn't say anything in complaint and continued in devouring his food at a slow pace. Who knows when he will get another chance at good meal like this. Life in the desert is hard, and small bandit groups like this are hard to encounter. Best to enjoy the good food for as long as it lasts. But when the boy tried to take another bite, he suddenly missed a treat between his utensils. It fell, he muttered before looking up and realizing why he missed it. Someone put their hand on the top of his head. It was an elderly man with a long white beard. "Who are you?" he questioned, looking at the old man with a blank stare. "I'm under orders from my emperor to search of a fearsome corpse-eating demon, said to be the bane of desert travelers, but I would have never imagined that it would actually turn out to be but a small child." He chuckled before his hand was slapped away by the said child. The boy took a weapon from a nearby corpse, a Jan and Dao, two deadly Chinese swords. Before getting into a somewhat similar stance that he had seen his foes use, interesting a child using the weapons of the foes he killed to protect himself. The old man's hands went to his belt that carried a short sword. Naruto stiffened as he felt that this man was going to be a much bigger challenge than any other he has faced so far. He quickly adjusted his style into a more loose one, crouching low while holding the weapons close to his side. From the outside, it looked like a lion or tiger ready to pounce on its prey on a moment's notice. It was a style created from pure instinct alone, and so far, it has never failed to kill any of his opponents. "What do you want? Are you here to kill me? Or are you going to try to capture me to be sold as a slave like these men have tried and failed?" the blonde boy asked in a low but aggressive tone. "No," the old man calmly answered as he pulled out his weapon and tossed it towards the kid. The boy was able to grab it before it hit him, but he wasn't prepared in how incredibly heavy the sword will be as his hand started to shake from the sheer weight of it. Even the armor of his fallen enemies was lighter than this. Impressive. Even grown men have trouble holding the sword, much less manage to grab it out of air without hurting their arms. For a young child to be able to accomplish this shows great potential, he praised kindly before turning around and beginning to leave. If you wish to learn to not only hold but also to effectively wield this weapon, then follow me, or you can simply keep it and stay here in hopes for another meal to arrive. I'll tell the emperor, there wasn't any demon out here after all. The child looked at the retreating man's back before directing his gaze at the odd weapon in his hands. Soon, two sets of footprints could be seen on the ground before heavy winds caused the sands to shift, making them vanish. What is your name, young one? It's Naruto. XXXXXXXXXX. 1 month later. XXXXXXXXXX. Hiya. A blonde child jumped forward, swiping his fist to knock out a wooden dummy's head without any problems, then proceeded to kick it into the roof where it finally shattered. Ha. Good, you're improving, the old man complimented as he approached the child. Standing to the side was another old man, wearing regal robes fit for a king. The man carefully observed the young student. You see, Emperor Yao. Young Naruto here has an uncanny fighting potential. His ability to learn and adapt is also extraordinary. I see. The emperor nodded in approval as he gave the young boy, now known as Naruto, a scrutinizing look. He does show much promise. Haha, you always did keep compliments to a minimum, unless it's directed to the little lady, old friend, the old man said cheerfully before looking towards Naruto. That is enough for now, young apprentice, come over here. Yes, sh+fu, the boy nodded before walking over and standing next to his teacher. The boy then faced the regal man who studied Naruto with a cold look. So this is the corpse-eating demon. Yao said in contemplative voice. I admit that he is strong for someone his age, but killing a small group of bandits. It's a bit hard to believe that this young child could accomplish it. But it is, but do not let appearances deceive you, the teacher of the young man cautioned. He is anything but a regular boy. I believe he might be a good candidate as your daughter's personal bodyguard since the last one perished not too long ago, the teacher advised before sending a fist at Naruto. The young man quickly spread his legs to lower his center of gravity and barely managed to dodge the hit. He then quickly recovered and assumed a basic fighting style taught to him by his master. You see. Even some of my best students have a hard time reacting, much less dogging the sudden attack. HMPH, the emperor nodded, acknowledging his close friend's abilities and by extension his students, before looking at Naruto again. Boy. Do you know why you have been brought here? No, I don't. I've been offered training and I agreed, Naruto stated plainly as his teacher chuckled at his brash nature. He then put his hand on the boy's shoulder, causing him to look up at his teacher. This here is the heavenly Emperor Yao, Emperor of the Great Chinese Federation, and my oldest and closest friend, he explained and afterwards smirked at how Naruto simply nodded dumbly, showing an uncaring attitude to this important piece of information. After a few moments passed in silent contemplation, Emperor Yao came up with a decision. I will trust your judgment and allow you to continue in training this boy, Jin. I expect nothing but the best results. Of course, old friend, I will not let you down, the old man, now named Jin, bowed in gratitude. And you young lad, once you have completed your training and are of coming age, you will be officially assigned your duties. Your teacher is one of the best warriors in China, so you have great expectations placed upon your shoulders. But having someone well known as Jin to be your teacher also grants you some perks like having a higher social status in our country. What do those Brits say? Noblesse oblige. Noblesse oblige, Jin corrected after he noticed Naruto looking confused. The boy didn't understand what the emperor meant. Noble obligation, you may have great power, but you always have to make sure that you do what's right. That is what a noble is supposed to do, put those in need for help before himself, a trait that is slowly dying in this world. Oh, that's fine as long as I get to eat my meals, Naruto stated firmly while the emperor nodded at his answer. Also, Jin, make sure Naruto attends the party so he can meet his future charge, the man said with a dark smirk. The teacher himself chuckled lightly before nodding in acknowledgement. Excellent, carry on. After the emperor left, Naruto turned to the old man who saved him from his time of isolation and killing. After internally thinking for a while, he finally decided to ask, sh+fu, just who in the world are you? The idea to ask about his identity didn't come to him before as the boy only cared about how this old man will make him stronger, but after being brought into such a big city and getting to meet an important person like the Chinese emperor, the boy simply had to know more about his teacher. What do you mean? Jin inquired calmly, trying his best not to look like the cat who swallowed the bird. You're an extremely skilled fighter, you have a friend who is the leader of a nation, and on top of it all, I gained high social standing just by being your apprentice. Why are you helping me so much? Why, you ask? Jin pondered while slowly pacing around the training area. That is a fair question. Why? He retorted, sometimes, in life, the answers you seek tend to be vague and hard to find. Well, I could give you the easy way out and provide the answer here and now, but the path of self-improvement is often riddled with hardships. That's why I want you to answer that question by yourself. To come up with your own conclusion and discovering and understanding the meaning behind it. That makes no sense, Naruto stated in an annoyed tone, which only made Jin heartily laugh in return. For now, it does not, you are but a student who is still learning, but in time, you will understand, you have a long life ahead, so the answers you seek will come to you eventually. But I still would like to know what I am training for, the young child asked as his teacher now stood in front of a large wooden door that he told Naruto to never open until he had given permission. What are you teaching me to do? With a flick from his single finger, the door flung open to show hundreds of people of all ages dressed in orange and yellow robes training. Some were fighting each other and practicing various attack moves, some were quickly stabbing their fingertips into pots under roaring fires without flinching or showing any signs of pain when doing it. When all of them noticed Jin, they quickly stopped their exercises. Afterwards, all of them as one turned to face Jin and sent their right fists into their open left palms. Shifu. They cried out loudly in respect. Naruto went wide-eyed at the sight of so many students. What is this? My monastery, Jin said while walking down the steps towards the training grounds. He motioned for the students to continue with their training, or to be more specific, this is a Shaolin monastery, you do know what that is, right? Naruto looked down trying his best to remember, but with such limited memories he couldn't think of any connection. No, Shifu. I see, I guess it's understandable taking into account your situation. The Shaolin Monastery is a place where we train our students to hone one's kung fu fighting skills, clearing the mind, body, and soul of any negativity that this world throws at us, he said before stopping and taking a nearby stick to push a student's knee out more. Fix the stance how? He ordered while the student nodded in understanding. Naruto, odd as it may be, I am not really that much of a gentle person as many people seem to believe. I'm teaching my skills in hopes that one day someone powerful and dedicated enough will rise up to protect my home, China, from any evil forces that might threaten it, but alas. Many of the current Chinese royalty believe that learning hand-to-hand combat is useless and should be forgotten. Instead, they endlessly preach that swordsmanship and modern weapons are the way of the future that will always prevail. Naruto nodded in understanding, remembering from personal experience how he almost died a few times from these odd weapons that shot out metal spheres at him. He was lucky that he was able to react to his enemy's hand movements in time and was able to dodge the insanely fast objects before they could take proper aim. So why continue? Why continue to struggle so much? Well, if you must know, my efforts aren't going to waste. My students do keep the peace on the streets around the Forbidden City. Some of my older students, including myself, have also gained the rare privilege of serving as elite bodyguards for the emperor, sighed unfortunately. With how the modern era is quickly snuffing out the traditions of old, I fear that this world will one day collapse under the weight of its own neglect. After thinking for a while, Naruto finally came to a conclusion. So you're training me in hopes that one day I would be one of the people who would rise up as the protectors of China? Naruto stated while looking at how some of the younger male students were playing a game of tag with some of the female students. Yes, Jin answered with a small grin, despite your talents, Naruto, you are an oddity among people, you possess a strange disconnection from our world, like you're walking in a dream. I believe that this is why you can kill so easily without fear or hesitation. This also allowed me to test an old idea of mine. Can I teach the best of all the fighting styles to someone so young of age that shows no hesitation at the sight of death? Jin said as he and Naruto entered a garden with a large peach tree in the center. Do you want me to become your successor? Naruto asked. The answer to that would be no and yes, he said with a huff and walked close to the tree. Upon reaching it, he gave it a small kick to get a peach fall into his hand. The hour not making any sense again, Naruto sighed in frustration. To have you as my successor would definitely be wonderful, but remember what the emperor has told you before. Once you come of age, you will be assigned your duties as the protector of emperor's daughter He. In some ways she also like my goddaughter, Jin explained as he passed the fruity ate to Naruto, who he also took a bite of it. She is quite shy and also very insecure of herself. If her father and I were to die too early, those high eunuchs that call themselves nobles would abuse her ignorance so they could secure themselves easy and pampered lives. So you want me to protect her from enemies that are not only outside China, but inside as well, Naruto guessed. Sigh, well, that does certainly summarize the scope of your future duties. You didn't fully realize what I require from you, he said with a look of disapproval on his face. She needs a friend. Her mother died some time ago. She was the only person she looked up to and meant the world to her, while her father does his best to comfort her. His duties as an emperor prevent him from spending too much time with her. As it stands right now, she needs more than a simple bodyguard, she needs a pillar of strength to lean on to. Someone who could help her to get through these difficult times and find strength to move on. When I first found you in the desert, my first thought was that you looked like a cornered beast that was ready to kill anyone to ensure its survival. But then I looked deep into your eyes and I saw more than a starving beast within them. I saw immense willpower and fortitude, and this might be just me going senile, but I also saw kindness buried deep within them. Naruto stared at the old man as he pondered over his words. For some unknown reason, he felt that he can understand the girl's pain, the feeling of not having parents around when you need them, the most. Somehow that hurt him. If it helps, it's not like you're going to be tied to her your whole life is. You can do lots of other things or even get married, as long as in the future you train an heiress student that could succeed in your duties, the Grandmaster stated while gesturing at the monastery. From the moment you became my apprentice, this place became a home that you will always be welcomed. Not even the emperor would dare to tear it down, not when so much history was placed here. At those words Naruto went into deep concentration, his mind working overtime and trying to figure if he should accept or refuse what is offered to him. After a while the decision was made, he'll do it. Sighed as I thought, I guess it's too much to ask for a young child to wait come again. He quickly said the last words as he didn't believe what he had heard. I said he'll do it, Naruto repeated. Jin sighed in relief. Naruto he walked and placed both hands on the child's shoulders. You will be a child of great promise, I will make sure of it. He vowed as the boy couldn't help but smile at those words. However Jun, Rinrin, Kao. Three beautiful girls quickly line up behind the old man. Ahem, this is Naruto. Naruto, those are your teachers. Wait, what? Naruto looked shocked. I thought you would be the one teaching me. What gives? The reason he was screaming was the fact that somehow, in the span of a moment, the girls managed to quickly surround him and started to undress him. Sir Jin. He is quite musky and dirty, permission to bath him straight away. The oldest girl with green hair asked while smiling. She seemed way too eager in requesting to perform that task. Excuse me, Naruto gawked. Also to cut his hair and frame his face. A girl with two buns holding her hair said, getting a pair of short shears to do her task. My hair's perfectly fine. Such dirty clothes, might I measure out his new clothes with my hands, the last girl said, the most plain yet amazing one of them, already unbuckling Naruto's pants. No, wait, don't touch me there. Naruto panicked, trying to push the girl's hands away from his pants. Shifu, get her off me. Haha, those girls are the emperor's deceased wife's handmaidens, forgive them for their forwardness, but they are going to make sure you pass as royal member of the court when the time to attend the royal party arrives. After training you will be educated in how nobles act often on the palace. He then turned around to leave with a wave of goodbye. Do be a good boy and behave. Nuo. Don't leave me with them. Shifu, you traitor. Naruto wailed, struggling to free himself from the handmaidens, but they would not let him go. First we need to show you how to properly bathe. Every inch must be scrubbed and lathered like lovers touch, the girls said in unison as they pushed the boy, with surprising strength no less, to the bath they were going to give him. I can take a bath myself just fine. Naruto cried out as they have arrived at the said bath, which actually was huge bathhouse that looked like only the most privileged could enter. The moment he was forced in, the doors were slammed shut and locked. Several moments later. Oh god. Why does it hurt? I thought we were taking a bath, not torture. XXXXXXXXXX. Outside the bathhouse. XXXXXXXXXX. Jin and the other students were outside of the bathhouse door, casually drinking tea and eating peaches that fell from the tree. Shifu, is this what you went through when you trained to stand by the emperor's side? The said man shook his head in negative while at the same time laughing quite loudly. Haha, hell no. Well, my training was pretty grueling, it was never this intense, haha. The smell from this soap burns. The other students all winced as they wondered what is happening there, while Jin just continued to listen and eat his food. Bewitch. You fucking waxed my legs. Are you sure has okay in there? Another student asked worriedly. I'll be fine, besides, I thought bathing with pretty ladies was a fantasy that all boys had. Jin said as the other student simply shrugged in response. Let it be known that monks really do have no drive for sexual thoughts. XXXXXXXXX. A few hours later. XXXXXXXXX. Well, look at you, don't you look fancy, Jin chuckled. Shut up, Naruto growled as he lost any dirt or grime that he had before the bath. He now wore something that was akin to that of a kimono, but was more of a robe. The undergarment was a grey shirt, and over that was a yellow robe with grey wrist sleeves. It was adorned by a long sleeveless dark red vest that looked similar to a jinbei ori that fell all the way down and had orange to complement the color scheme. The boy also wore a matching dark red sash to keep it all together. The girls were ecstatic to finally pamper someone again, the teacher of Naruto said as he patted the boy's head. I know it must have been rough, but you made them happy again, so thanks. My skin is red all over, did I mention that it was bleeding in some places too? Naruto deadpanned, making Jin laugh again, so I have to wear these. He tried to move and almost fell over, but managed to correct his balance in time, constricting robes that barely pass as clothes. No, not all the time, only every now and then, like the party we're about to attend. Jin shook his head. Why do we have to attend? Beside to protect your friend and his daughter? Naruto inquired as he loosened the belt on his waist. Ah, much better, he sighed in relief, stretching his stomach that was almost close to death from being restrained so much. Seriously? Why? Because these royal idiots believe kissing up to the emperor will get them a better life. We are here to intercept them and weed out the ones who are not worthy and scout out those who are, Jin stated firmly. Will any of them actually stick out like that? Naruto questioned. No, generations of preparations and practice turned them into almost perfect actors who hide their ill intentions well. They cover themselves with fake emotions and lies like it was suit of armor, but no matter how strong that armor might be, everyone has a weak point. Just follow your gut and eventually you will find it. That's what I've been always doing. Jin said before moving towards the large double doors. This way is to the palace from our temple. We always stay close to our charges. We only leave when they ask of us to or when it's time for meals. Fine by me, Naruto shrugged and nodded in understanding. And most importantly, behave yourself. Try to make a good first impression for our emperor, and more importantly, Lady Tianzi. It might prove difficult, but try your best to gain her trust and make her feel happy. Remember, she is in a difficult emotional state right now and needs someone she can depend on, Jin said seriously while Naruto again nodded. But this time with a more serious expression as well. The blonde then walked beside Jin as they secretly entered the room where dozens of other royalty were dancing, eating luxurious food and socializing with others of the same status. Follow me, Jin ordered silently as he moved towards the man sitting at the throne, along with a young girl 2 years younger than Naruto. She had a slightly timid and doll-like appearance with pale skin, white hair, and red eyes. Her hair was made in an elaborate style fit for Chinese royalty, and her wardrobe was beautiful and highly decorative. Ah, Jin, the emperor said as he stood up, smiling after noticing his longtime friend. I was beginning to wonder if I had to call the royal guard to get you. Nonsense, old friend, as you can see, I've arrived and am perfectly safe. I might be old, but this senior is more than ready to perform his duties, Jin chuckled before looking at Naruto. I haven't gotten enough time to teach Naruto everything, but he can at least dress the part until we do, he said with an apologetic tone. It's perfectly fine, first impressions aren't always everything, the emperor replied in a friendly manner. Yeah, I've changed, my old friend, you used to be. The two continued to talk as if it was an everyday normal event, while the other royalty glared at Jin and Yao, knowing that they can't approach the emperor when they were chatting like that, so after finishing the talk, Jin waved kindly at the young girl that was still standing beside her father. Lady Tianzi, how are you this evening? The young girl blushed deep red before trying to speak up, only to stop short every time she managed to get barely a syllable out. She soon looked downwards in defeat as her father rubbed the top of her head in a calm fashion. It's alright, Tianzi, don't be shy, Hess our friend, remember? Yao smiled fatherly. Why yes, father, she stuttered shyly. It was almost painful to see her try to finish that sentence, or lack of it. What's with that girl? Naruto thought to himself, looking intently at her. Jin. He coughed to remind his existence to his teacher. May I ask for an introduction? Oh, yes, of course, Jin caught lightly into his hand and then pulled Naruto towards the girl. Wo's eyes widened a bit in fright at the sight of the boy. Lady Tianzi, there's someone who would like to meet you. Come, child. Naruto stood tall and gave a comforting smile to the young lady. Hello, princess. He said while glancing at Jin, who was shaking his head comically. Queen. Another shake, miss. Jin at this point was sweating profusely as he was shaking his head rapidly. A lady. He looked at Jin, who nodded approvingly. Ahem, Lady Tianzi, my name is Naruto, it's nice to meet you, he bowed to her. Tianzi merely looked at the ground, clearly not going to open up to him due to her shyness. He swears that this situation somehow felt very familiar to him, but quickly put away the sensation to the back of his mind. The blonde boy lightly scratched his cheek while wondering on what to do until it hit him. He looked at his teacher and voiced his idea. Sh+Fu, may I take Tianzi away from the party? He asked as Yao sent a look of cautiousness towards Naruto. I swear that I will do my best to protect her, Emperor Yao. I just feel that she is a bit overwhelmed by the current atmosphere and needs to relax outside of the huge gathering. That way you and Sh+Fu would have your own private time to mingle while she rests for a bit. Naruto concluded with a smile that only a kid could wear without looking suspicious. Tianzi looked at the blonde with wide eyes. He was going to help her leave. She continued to stare at him as his teacher glanced at the emperor, who was currently contemplating the young boy's words. Jin pondered at this, not even half an hour passed since they arrived at the party, and Naruto already picked up some ideas on how things work around the palace. I believe that this is an excellent idea, your highness, such parties can be stuffy, and some fresh air will help Lady Tianzi to relax. Are you sure about this, Jin? Yao asked curiously. Jin leaned in a bit towards the emperor. I have faith in my apprentice, he has great talent and not to mention, might actually have a chance at breaking down the wall your daughter has set up ever since your wife died, he quietly added as the father of Tianzi nodded solemnly. Naruto, you're still not familiar with the palace layout, so let Tianzi be your guide, remember. This palace is massive so don't get lost, he ordered Naruto while looking directly into the boy's eyes to emphasize the importance of the task. Yes sir, Naruto nodded firmly. Yao looked at the boy and thought before saying, very well, young man, I'll leave my daughter in your care, for now, make sure no harm whatsoever befalls her. After bowing to the emperor, the boy moved towards Tianzi and bowed again, whenever you are ready, my lady. This way, Tianzi stuttered before leading Naruto away from the party. Well that's one less thing to worry about, Jin said to Yao before sending him a look of concern, how much longer? Yao gave a rueful smile, don't worry too much about it, I'll last with you by my side and until she is ready to stand tall on her own, the emperor answered as his partner chuckled while stroking his long beard. I suppose so. XXXXXXXXX. Palace main hall. XXXXXXXXX. After exiting the party, the young lady walked nervously with Naruto following her shadow quietly, she kept wondering, where would she take him? Where would be somewhere he would like? So is there any place in the palace you would like to go? Naruto questioned, making her squeak. What? Did he just ask her where she wanted to go? The young white-haired girl looked downwards. I am not really sure this is the FF first I was asked by some to be a guide, usually I am the one that is always being guided by palace servants. The blonde's eyes widened at that, was she that sheltered by everyone? To the point that she can't even have a chance to go somewhere on her own whims. Oh well, don't worry about it, besides, this whole place is big anyways, and Naruto tried to make an excuse to make her not to worry much about being a guide, but was suddenly interrupted. I guess the balcony in mother's old room, Tianzi answered softly and slightly crestfallen. Whenever I think about her I would go to the balcony outside of her room and stargaze. Naruto nodded as he looked around, sounds like a plan Sue, you gonna show me where it is? He chuckled as the girl blushed a bit at forgetting that she is the one acting as a guide. Once again she started walking and he followed. The blonde also took notice how her posture while walking changed a bit, she no longer looked as nervous and her steps were a bit more firm. It looks like she is not too far gone into depression. I need to make sure to interact with her as much as possible. Having someone to talk to and hang out with helps to distract her from her own painful thoughts and gain more confidence. Even a little of it is better than nothing, Naruto thought. After walking for a bit and climbing 2 flights of stairs, they finally arrived at Tianzi's mother's old bedroom. The two soon entered an elegant room that Naruto noticed was untouched for quite some time, given on how dusty it was, they could have at least changed the bed sheets and linens every now and then. The young man however noticed something else as well, the bed had a necklace on it and the nightstand had a picture on it, it was watercolor portrait of a woman that almost looked like Tianzi, but she was clearly older and had slight bags under her eyes. The portrait also had a younger looking Emperor Yao in it, who was holding a baby with small tuft of white hair. He took the picture off its nightstand before placing back up, he soon heard the door to the balcony opening and rushed to see Tianzi looking out in the night sky. She stared into the starry sky as Naruto softly closed the door behind him before joining her. I always wanted to visit here, but father won't let me. Why? Naruto asked while sitting down, I mean, it's your mom's room. She passed away a few years ago, father said it was not natural, she said silently, clearly not understanding what it really meant, while Naruto clearly did. During his time in the desert he had taken many lives, and some of them were taken when the victim was still sleeping and unaware of the incoming death, some of them still managed to open their eyes for one final time, and he witnessed light fading away in them. He keeps saying that there might be something dangerous in the room and that I need to stay away from it. At those words Naruto saw clear signs of her going back into depression and had to think of something fast. After taking a quick look around, he noticed that a bit further away to the side, there was another balcony that was similar to the one they were currently standing in. He guessed it might have also been a bedroom that was either for close relatives or guests of high importance, and this gave him a perfect idea. Lady Tianzi, that balcony over there, is it also part of a bedroom? Maybe a room where guests stay at? Naruto asked gently while the girl was startled by the sudden question. After thinking over for a bit she nodded, then I have an awesome idea. What if I ask your father if I could live in that room? Well, it might not be your mother's bedroom, but it also has a balcony, so whenever you want to go stargazing or talk to someone you could always visit me. After a few moments passed, the boy took a step back when he saw the younger girl shedding tears, her left hand that rested on the balcony rail gripped it hard. Why are you doing so much for me? We only met not long ago, and you barely even know me, so why? She asked as the blonde quickly wondered about that himself. He could say that it's part of his future job as her personal bodyguard, but looking at Tianzi's honest and lonely eyes, it might not be the best answer, and it might make her even more upset. After thinking for a bit, he finally came up with an appropriate and honest answer. He brought his hand up to his head, scratching the back of it gently. Well, isn't that what friends do for each other? Tianzi looked wide eyes at Naruto, blushing slightly at his friendly smile. Friends? She asked, as if the very word was an entirely new concept to her. The young man walked forward and kneeled when he reached her personal space, taking her hand into his own. He bowed his head slightly. It might be a bit too straightforward, but would you grant the honor for this good-for-nothing person in becoming your very first friend? He smiled at his jab at himself. Why, yes. She squeaked happily with a smile so bright it could match the beauty of the stars. I will speak with father right away and make sure you will have everything, and Owie. Naruto gently flicked her forehead with a deadpan expression. First rule of friends, you don't make big promises until you are certain that everything will work out. Sniffling a bit while holding her forehead, Tianzi looked confused at his words. What do you mean? She asked as Naruto looked at the sky for a brief moment before looking back at her. Don't worry about it, you will understand what I meant once you learn what it means to be a true friend, Lady Tianzi. XXXXXXXXX. 1 year later. XXXXXXXXX. Jin grabbed a fist that Naruto threw, and at the same time the younger male slammed his foot on the ground to lift his body to quickly send his other foot at hit his teacher's chest. Enough of the brawling. He ordered, and with skill and grace of a grandmaster his other hand quickly force-palmed the limb downwards. He moved towards Naruto as one hand his head down, while the other hit it back upwards with the blonde still in the air, spinning him around as the man watched when the kid fell onto the floor hard. Naruto. The young man watched as his friend, Tianzi, quickly rushed to his side to help, but he raised his hand to stop her, and he smiled. It's fine, I haven't gotten a good beat down like that in quite a while, he said while cracking his back as Jin didn't lose any kind of hold in his stance. That was quite amazing. Shifu, were you holding back all this time? The teacher didn't say anything as Naruto rushed at him again, jumping forward to do a kick. The older man sidestepped the kick and raised his arms to block a follow-up side-swiping punch when Naruto landed and tried to capitalize his step to send the force into his next hit, which Jin blocked perfectly, sliding his foot to trip over Naruto. The kid grabbed his robe in effort to pull him down as well. The grandmaster, however, slammed his fist into Naruto's sternum when bending downward, making Naruto let go and grip his stomach. That's it, he said with a calm smile, as Tianzi rushed towards Naruto, checking his body as the older male sat up with a smile. Not bad, Naruto, your intense training seems to be paying off. This is the first time in a while since I had to actually fight back. However, his words didn't reach the two as Tianzi was talking to Naruto. You don't have to keep training like this, she said with a small frown, the royal guards are enough to protect me. The old man tried to get their attention. But at the same time Naruto spoke, cutting Jin off as the man seemed visibly depressed of being dismissed so easily. Well, of course I know that they can, but do remember that I made a promise to protect you as well, and I will never break my promises, he said with a lady killer smile. Tianzi seemed to pout as she blushed a bit, and Naruto. I feel completely ignored, Jin said astonished, but he still had to remind his students of something. Naruto, your request to leave the palace to go to the city was granted, except for Lady Tianzi. The eunuchs greatly requested for her to stay here, he said while the girl looked down, feeling depressed from being denied her wish. Well, I said my piece and it's time for me to go meditate. I'd say for about 5 hours. Naruto, make sure you watch over her until then. He's laying it thick there, old man, Naruto said, smiling smugly as he saw his teacher leave in a huff. Tianzi looked oddly at Naruto. What do you mean? She asked as the boy chuckled, you don't have to stay and wah. She was interrupted when the blonde boy placed a finger on her lips, making her blush as well in the process, before saying, Tianzi, we're going out today to do whatever you want, understand? The white-haired girl took a step back, but the eunuch said. Quick question, are they the ones in charge? Naruto asked as he led her to the temple's living quarters, soon entering his room. Are they allowed to order around the only daughter of Emperor Yao? He walked up to his drawer and took out a few old clothes that he used to wear until some of the royal tailors made better and tighter clothing for him or are in line for being the Empress of China since Wu Zetian. That's the young lady tried and failed to come up with a proper answer. Understand. Good, now, you're coming with me, you're gonna spend the day in the city with me whether you like it or not, though I doubt about the latter part of my statement, he chuckled awkwardly as the girl merely nodded. A year might have passed, but he still has a lot of work to do in fixing her shy nature. But at least she can somewhat make a decent conversation at this point than when they first met, now girls. ZOOP. Beep. Tianzi was suddenly lifted up by the girls who now bathed Naruto on a daily basis, much to his continuous embarrassment. Who are they? I'll find out later, girls, make sure to bath her properly and no funny stuff. Naruto said while giving them a firm look. The said girls looked down in disappointment. But do make sure doll her up, but not too much, make her look like a normal citizen of this area, Naruto ordered, passing the girls his old clothes as they gave dubious looks at each other. What are you waiting for? Get to it. She has a meeting outside to attend. He clapped 2 times as the girls, from all their training, nodded earnestly to take the girl away. Wait, Naruto, Tianzi cried out, my panties. Oi, I said no funny stuff. The blonde boy shouted over the hallway as the girls responded positively to his orders. Geez, those girls are way too dedicated on their work ethic. XXXXXXXXX. Line break. XXXXXXXXX. Amazing. Tianzi said while running down the streets of her nation to see a crowded market. She was wearing orange monk robes that were a bit big for her, as the maids had to use another belt to hike up the excess cloth to prevent her from tripping over, and made sure that the sleeves were covering her arms. Her hair was let down and hidden inside the robes to make sure that others think she had average length hair instead of the long one she is known for. All in all, she looked like an ordinary person, but with the beauty of a high-class status. Hey, slow down. We got plenty of sights to see, Naruto chuckled as he wore his normal outfit the same as Tianzi's, with a few golden amulets on it to show his status of being part of the higher court. They're not going anywhere, he joked, knowing that this is her first time she is actually seeing the world outside her palace. Here's a lot of people. And lots of food too. She said moving to a stall that sell fast food, watching as the white charcoal created blue flames. Naruto quickly went to grab her hand when the princess almost stole a chicken skewer from the stall owner when he wasn't looking. Tia's eye, those are rent for us, we have to pay for them, he said before looking at the owner. Hey, 2 skewers and an order of jade rice. Out of jade rice, got some jasmine rice, the owner gruffly said before rudely pouring in a small amount of rice in bowls. That'll be 100 yuan. 100, Naruto exclaimed, looking at the measly amount of food. That's robbery. He grumbled before giving the man his amount of bills. Here's I, Naruto said to his charge as she looked at the rude man. Something wrong? Why was he so mean? She asked, a bit frightened by stall owner's behavior. It's sort of hard to explain, sometimes people will do that to you, Naruto said as they found a free table. I hope the food is worth it, at least it's hot, Naruto chuckled as he saw Tianzi blow on the hot stick of poultry. The girl cutely announced as she took a small bite of the chicken, before smiling brightly. It's so yummy. She then tried the rice and also smiled widely. The rice is great too. Really? Naruto questioned before he too took a bite of his food and was surprised. Japanese ingredients, but with a flair of Chinese cooking. It's well made. Wow, the man might be a dick, but he can sure. Oh shit. Naruto slammed his hands into the table as he saw Tianzi missing. He cried out before quickly standing up, turning his head from side to side. He managed to spot the young girl and sighed in relief, only to once again become alarmed when he noticed her walking up to the rude man's stall. Oh no, he then quickly ran over to her. What are you doing? He panicked. The girl however didn't hear Naruto as she smiled while the rude man looked down at her, not at all intimidated by his glare. You make such wonderful food. I think the palace would definitely invite you as chef if they tried your dishes. At first the man just continued to glare at the child, but after a few moments a small smile appeared on his face. Heh, you think? Well, I tried, but those stuffy eunuchs told me to leave as my love for using foreign ingredients made them think I was a spy, he said coldly as he continued to cook and placed more food for others to buy, glad that at least not all people think like them. His hand moved towards the girl, making her scared by the gesture until he patted her head. Here, take this to your brother. He gave her some mooncakes. Tell him sorry for the rude look. I just thought he was one of those snotty bigwigs, he said as Tianzi smiled kindly. The man's own smile became a bit bigger from the sheer cuteness radiating from her. Okay now. Go away before your brother becomes too worried, he said, but not as rudely as before. Okay, Tianzi replied happily before bouncing on her feet and went towards Naruto. Naruto, look. The nice man gave me free mooncakes. Tianzi exclaimed happily before quickly digging into one of the treats. Naruto blinked with a dumbfounded look. This was unbelievable. He never thought that by simply eating tasty food would make Tianzi break out of her shyness, even if for a moment, and approach the rude stall owner so openly. She was way too innocent for her own good. And the eunuchs might take advantage of that. Well, at least this showed him that the young lady is capable of talking to someone besides him and others at the palace. In Naruto's view, her future suddenly became so much brighter as long as she has the right people protecting her and providing proper advice to her when needed. Might I have one? He said, reaching towards the sweets only for her to pull them away. No, she childishly said while pouting, this is your punishment for making those girls bathe me and treat me like a doll. Naruto drawled out, now she was just being mean. This trip might have leveled her up faster than he thought. The student of the Shaolin Grandmaster cracked a smile, glad to see you so happy, it makes your beauty even more radiant, he complimented, making the girl's face turn red in less than a second. Thank you, Naruto, she said while shyly fiddling with her fingers. The young man's eyes widened as Tianzi's visage was suddenly replaced by a blue-haired girl with pure white eyes. As ridiculous as that sounded, after quickly rubbing his eyes, the blonde looked back at the strange girl, only to see the young princess standing before him just as before. Confused, Naruto decided that his mind was simply playing tricks on him. He most likely was more tired than he originally thought from today's training and from the beatdown he had received. Suo, Ze, he teased out Tianzi's new name, making the girl blush. Her tummy felt light and funny from the very odd way he said her name. How's your first time outside? He asked as they resumed their walk around the city streets. While gazing at stores, the girl clung onto Naruto's side when the streets started to get more populated. The young royal girl gave a warm smile of happiness as she gazed upwards to her first and only friend so far. It was perfect, it was something that I always wanted to do, but neither my bodyguards nor father ever allowed it. For you to grant me this wish of mine, it makes me very happy. Tilting her head with halfway closed her eyes, her beauty and cute aura actually outshining the sun. 00. Naruto suddenly crouched down as he gripped his face. Can't take it, level of adorableness overload, cuteness too powerful, he squealed out, as did others in the streets as they saw a glimpse of her face. Naruto? Are you okay? Standing up after recovering some of his manliness from the sudden cuteness attack, the blonde nodded, yeah, was just a bit startled by, oh crap, Naruto swore when he looked at a clock in one of the stores. It was pointing towards 5, we need to get back before those Julius pricks realize we're gone. Julius wa whoaa, the girl comically shouted as Naruto lifted her over his head and ran towards the secret entrance to the palace. They'll tell you when we're older. Naruto shouted as he rushed as fast as his young legs allowed him to. The surrounding people could only watch in awe at how quick the little boy was. XXXXXXXXX. Line break. XXXXXXXXX. You made it just in time, he sighed in relief while helping Tianzi to put on her dress after she expressly told him not to let the strange temple girls assist her like they did earlier today. Too tight. He said, unsure if the belt was supposed to be slightly tighter, extra tight. A bit more, she sighed, hating the fact she had to attend a party when she and her bodyguard had such a nice outing. She slightly lost her breath of air when the right amount of tightness was applied. Right there, that's tight enough, you can stop, Tianzi ordered her friend, you can also take off the blindfold now. The blonde gave a sigh of relief as he finally did what she said. He had to disrobe her and dress her without sight. Needless to say, it was a bit of a hard task. Good, are you ready, my lady? He inquired, knowing that he will have to stay by her side. She was now less shy when meeting people around the palace, but as long as he was near, I know I may not be the best choice when bringing someone to the party, but I promise not to stand in your way when someone catches your attention. He recited what his teacher said to him, he may be her closest friend. But that is only when they are together alone and not surrounded by nobles or other royalty. If she behaved the same way she does when they are alone, it might cause other people of high status to look down on her or in worst case disregard her entirely. That's why Naruto always has to make sure that he never puts himself at the same level of status as her. The nobles and royal society, they are not equal. Well, it was a bit of a contradiction as he made her dress up as a lower-class citizen, but that was on their own time. When it came to political and other royalty things, that's where he has to lower himself for his lady's sake, even when she hated it and ordered him not to. He simply colded as he made a promise to both her father and Jin. Naruto, Tianzi murmured, can you promise me something? The young man stopped walking as he turned to the person he swore to protect. Yes, Lady Tianzi. Can you stop calling me? She requested after a short pause. Huh? Naruto tilted his head in confusion. I don't want to be called by that name when it's just the two of us. She looked down as she fiddled with her fancy dress. My real name. Wait, Tianzi wasn't your real name, Naruto said, astonished that all this time he was calling her by whatever Tianzi meant. She shook her head, my real name is given to those who are family or someone we deeply trust. Really, Naruto pondered, he certainly didn't expect that, so what's your real name? It's. Stop him. The two children were startled by the sudden shout and turned towards the main entrance door to the palace. There they spotted a large security guard tackling down a long, raven-haired man who wore what appeared to be medical coat used by doctors. Naruto sighed as he had to. "Let him go," Tianzi ordered the guard who held the long-haired man. "What?" the portly man said with a confused look. "But your highness, this man broke the law. He not only saved the life of prison inmates, he also wasted medicine and medical equipment that is only reserved for true hospital patients," he declared boldly. Naruto sighed as he remembered how a week ago the palace guards arrested some thugs that were having a fight near the palace wall over some found money. The thugs weren't really that dangerous, they simply had too much to drink and made some poor choices. Normally this wouldn't be such a big of a deal, but unfortunately during the fight those thugs accidentally damaged a vehicle belonging to a noble, and the said noble ordered the guards to punish the thugs before arresting them, which in turn meant a brutal and painful beatdown. Naruto sighed as that was a typical case of a noble abusing his power that he shouldn't have had in the first place. He can already guess that one of those thugs' life was in danger because of the beating, and the doctor saved it, even if he wasn't supposed to by the degree of law. The law stated that criminals cannot receive any care at all when a criminal is sent to prison. He either dies early if he is put on execution block or dies later because of poor treatment. In prison, criminals only receive bare minimum of food and that's it, no medical care, no form of entertainment or anything that would make their imprisonment at least a bit more bearable. Emperor Yao tried multiple times to change the law. But because of the unstable political situation and nobles' resistance, he was never able to implement the changes. Of course, the emperor could try to enforce the changes, but the nobles might use it to their advantage in showing that the emperor is too soft to rule. It is at times like these that Naruto wished that the previous emperor wasn't so lenient towards the nobles. The previous emperor was too kind-hearted, and because of it, those in nobility managed to increase their influence in places that should have been strictly regulated by the government. That's why Naruto decided that he was going to stop the guard from punishing the doctor unjustly. However, to his immense shock Tianzi was the one who spoke up. That man was only fulfilling his duty as a doctor as all good doctors should. You cannot arrest him for something as saving a life. He mustn't be punished for it. While the guard was clearly shaken by the prince's sudden outburst, he still tried to maintain his point, but he still broke the law. If he is released without being punished, it will set a bad example for others of his profession and encourage disobedience. Doesn't that statement technically apply to you right now? Aren't you disobeying a direct order from royalty? Naruto calmly said, making the guard bristled at having his own words used against him. Look, just let the guy go. This isn't ancient China, where even a minor offense was considered to be on the same level of a war crime, just as Princess Tianzi said. The doctor was doing only what was natural to him, Naruto said while staring straight into the guard's eyes. The guard himself shivered as he felt like he was being stared at by something akin to a demon. After few moments passed the portly guard nodded in understanding, but still tried to make one final statement in defense of his actions. I was just fulfilling my duties and following the law. Lawbreakers like this doctor are nothing but trash that deserve nothing but swift execution. Naruto glared at this proclamation. Clearly those damned eunuchs' way of thinking has spread among some of the guards, which was never a good sign. Listen, this is your Fina. You're wrong. Naruto's eyes widened as his head snapped towards his lady. This was the first time he heard her raise her voice so loudly, and so openly as well. He wouldn't be surprised if others at the palace heard her. What you are saying is wrong. This doctor is not trash. He is a good man that performed a good deed. He shouldn't die because of it. She yelled out, foregoing her etiquette lessons to always be soft-spoken and calm. This made the young boy feel proud at his friend. She was standing up for what she believed was right. Naruto walked forward to stand barely a foot across from the guard and the doctor on the floor. What is your name? It's Hongu, sir. The guard said in a frightened voice. From the boy's fancy clothes the guard could tell this youngling was clearly of higher status and could easily punish him for disobeying royalty. Well then, Hongu, send this man to the temple. Tell Grandmaster Jin that the doctor here should test it if he can be trained to become part of the royal caretakers, he ordered while looking down at the guard. The man is not only dedicated to his duty as a doctor, but his determination allowed him to sneak into prison holding cells and heal a prisoner right under the prison guards' noses. This definitely shows great promise, Naruto said, winking at the prisoner who looked at the boy with hope. If any of those jewel-less nobles want to complain, they can blame it on me. Finally relenting, the guard stood up along with the doctor. The two then walked towards where the temple was while Naruto walked up to the Tianzi, but calling her by that name sounded weird now that he knew it was a fake. You have no idea how proud I am right now, he softly said while Tianzi looked at Naruto. You stood up for what you believed was right and proved that you are not as weak-willed as some might believe. The girl glowed from the high praise she received from her friend and shortly after looked down while blushing slightly. Lihua. Huh? Diong Lihue, that's my name, looking back up with gratitude in her eyes. Naruto, can you please call me that whenever we are alone? Please. After hearing her request, the blonde boy smiled and nodded. Alright then, Lihue it is, Naruto answered. The young lady, now named Lihue, smiled in return. She then turned around, continued walking towards the party, with the boy following close behind her. From then on, they would never be seen apart, always at each other's side. XXXXXXXXX. 2 years later. XXXXXXXXX. Naruto, now at the age of 11, strode into the party wearing the same clothes, but slightly adjusted to fit his size. Throughout the years he always made sure to stay close to Lady Lihue and continued his training under Jin as a Shaolin monk. Well, he was unsure if he really was someone would call a monk or not, maybe Shaolin warrior would be more accurate. He waved at the few nobles that he constantly met during the parties. Gotta try to make fools like him after all. So, is someone special coming here today? Naruto walked towards Jin as Lihue went to her father's side. I haven't seen so many eunuchs here before, the young royal guard in training said as he saw almost all members of the nobility eating and chatting with the other royalty there. Sadly, the Britannia's envoy finally arrived, Jin said with a slightly worried voice, but noticed how Naruto looked at him confused and sighed it again. They are the people we are at war with, remember? The blonde nodded. Well, he was oddly smarter than most kids his age. He was practically alien to the country he was staying in and by extension the world. He learned over time that the Chinese Federation was quite powerful as a country and that they were fighting against another, more powerful nation called Britannia. I remember, but why are we letting them in if we are fighting against them? The old dance of politics, Jin sighed dramatically as he waved a hand to have a servant bring him and his student drinks. For now, just pretend to like them, he said, passing Naruto a drink. Well, here's to us guardians of the royal family, he toasted. Naruto rolled his eyes as he tapped his glass against his teacher's. He then noticed Yan Lihue smiling at him. He also noticed Emperor Yao patting his chest. Well, his eyes were furrowed slightly in pain. Hey, is Emperor Yao alright? I noticed he hasn't been looking too good lately. I heard that one of the greatest knights of Britannia is bringing over his protege. Make sure to try and become friends with her. We might need allies if anything happens to me, the Grandmaster said quickly, making sure Naruto understood how serious his request was. The blonde did so, completely forgetting his previous question as he took the task in a serious manner. Yes, Shifu, the boy acknowledged before moving towards the lady he had sworn to protect. Well, Jin took a deep breath. That was way too close. The Grandmaster watched as his student and his emperor's daughter were delightfully chatting, smiling at how close the two were. Make sure to guard her well, Naruto, for I fear that difficult times are awaiting us at the horizon. Jin's eyes turned deadly when he saw the Chinese announcer walk towards the middle of the room. Emperor Yao, I wish to greet Britannia's ambassador, Schneasel al Britannia. Accompanying him are an elite knight from the Knights of the Round, Lord Alois Foix and his student Lady Monica Krzyzewski. Naruto watched closely as 3 people walked the red carpet towards the emperor and his daughter. The first person was a very handsome man with fair skin, corn silk blonde hair that falls across the back of his neck and cold violet eyes. He is extremely tall, wearing a long royal purple tunic that is bordered with black and gold accents, and across his midsection is a loosely fitting white belt, ending right at his kneecaps, covering a portion of white slacks. Over the top of this is a white overcoat that possessed a stiff black high-backed collar that showed a crimson silk inside. To complete the look he had golden epaulets at his shoulders. The girl following the 2 men displayed a gentle look on her face. She had straight blonde hair that was tied into 2 pigtails at the front and wore a white uniform with light green and gold accents. She also wore a skirt that had sword attached on the left side of her belt. Age-wise she was around Naruto's age, maybe a year younger than him. The last person was the oldest among the 3, easily at his 30s with a cocky smile on his face. Like the girl, he wore a white uniform with a grey robe wrapped around his body. He had held a large sword at his side, something that Naruto had never seen, as it was nearly twice the width of the girl's sword. Greetings, Your Majesty Emperor Yao, Schneasel said with a charming smile, I am happy to see you well. The emperor, however, just gave a stoic look at the Britannian. Where is the usual ambassador? I have never seen the likes of you before, Yao inquired while Naruto and Jin gripped hidden knives within their sleeves, ready to throw them at a moment's notice. The man just bowed his head with a sad frown. Unfortunately, my mother recently fell ill, so I asked my father to take over her role as temporary ambassador. I have proven myself that I can at least do a similar job as her. I see. Yao nodded. Well then, shall we proceed? Go mingle with the rest at the party, and I shall meet with you later on. He waved off as the blonde man nodded in gratitude. He then proceeded to walk towards a table filled with Chinese sweets and snacks, while the 2 uniformed people followed closely at his side. I don't trust him, Naruto said to his teacher who nodded in return. I don't know why, but I get this really strong urge to throw him into the nearest river filled with alligators, he said with a chuckle, while Jin shook his head in disappointment. Even as joke said in our country, don't let them catch you saying that, Jin ordered. Besides, even if you wanted to, you won't be allowed to do such a thing. We don't want to add more strain between our two nations, as there already is too much of it. Right, the blonde sighed while looking back at the Britannia trio. He was momentarily surprised when he saw the blonde Britannian girl walking towards him, after taking a quick glance at his teacher, who nodded in approval. Naruto also walked up forward. Is there anything I can do for you, my lady? The girl eyed him from head to toe and seemed confused. Why is a Britannian part of the royal court belonging the Chinese emperor? I'm afraid I must correct you as I'm not a Britannian. Well, technically I'm not Chinese either, but I am someone who is dedicated in protecting the emperor's daughter, Lady Tianzi, he stated with a bored tone as the girl glared at him for such a monotone reply. So, are you like me? Super strong or something like that? The girl seemed to at least take that statement well, given her large smile. Indeed. I'm a student of the Knight of the Round after all. When I prove worthy of it, and if there is an empty seat, I shall take my place among them, Monica said with great pride in her voice. Ah, well I hope you get it, Naruto chuckled while scratching his head lightly. So does it come with anything like money or ranks? The girl became slightly intrigued at the fellow blonde's question. Well, there was a time when becoming a knight also made you part of the nobility, but I believe when Charles I Britannia became emperor, he changed that policy, as many people abused the system of it, she explained, while Naruto nodded for her to continue. Well, you are given a high position in the military when you become part of the Knights of the Round, but I'm unsure of the social status you are granted. I am. Monica, do be careful when blabbing about our secrets to that Chinese filth, the oldest member of the trio said with a smug look as many of the Chinese nobility glared at him. Do try to remember that if you ever wish to outrank your pitiful father. Naruto didn't say anything as he knew that the man was looking for an excuse to have him bite back. Please, forgive me for my mistakes, sir. The fact is that I am quite empty-headed on the outside. I didn't even know that I was in the Chinese Federation until my teacher saved me, he said, while making sure that others heard him. From the outside perspective, the Britannian man will appear as a cruel person for looking down on a confused child. Alois, I suggest you stop trying to insult our gracious hosts, Schneizel ordered while walking up to Naruto with a drink in hand. My apologies, Alois is the embodiment of my country at its current height of power. I can only pray that you can forgive his mistake. It's not a problem, Naruto answered as he did his best not to make a mistake in front of the ambassador. He really had to give it to Emperor Yao and Grandmaster Jin. They have behaved like this for decades. Well, Naruto had to make sure that every word he says cannot be twisted into something that can be used against him. Allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Schneizel El Britannia, temporary ambassador from the great kingdom of Britannia, he greeted with a bow. And you are? Naruto, he greeted. I don't have a surname, so I hope my first name will suffice. That was a mistake, as the prince gave a sad look. Oh my, why is that? He said while his whole demeanor turned to sadness. This guy was good. I was an orphan and all I can remember was surviving in the middle of the desert barely, Naruto stated as simply as possible, but I was saved by my teacher and am forever grateful that he gave me a place to call home. Your teacher is the current head guard of Emperor Yao, is he not? Schneizel stated with a great smile on his face. I've once seen him best a knight of one in combat, with nothing less than his steel-like fists. Yes he is, but I'm afraid his old age will catch up with him soon, Naruto said lying as he knew Jin was still good for another few decades at the very least, so he decided to make me as his apprentice as a precaution. I see, the older teen nodded with a smile that held no ill intentions. Naruto, Tianzi walked up to her bodyguard while he noticed her giving him a slightly annoyed look from not being by her side. Yes, my lady. Naruto asked his friend. Can we go? She asked timidly. Sure, if your father has in. My lady. Naruto screamed out as he saw the wall furthest away from them explode. He pushed her behind him as the Britannian knights did the same to Schneizel. Where did that come from? The blonde male said while looking back and forth to see if anyone tried to make a move against them. Naruto behind you. Schneizel shouted as the blonde turned to see Tianzi missing. He then quickly spotted a glimpse of her ivory white hair from behind the window. He ran towards it to see someone leaping over the walls of the palace with great skill and speed. Tianzi. He roared and was about to follow them until Jin grabbed his shoulder. Wait. Fuck that. Naruto roared as his eyes momentarily turned red with slits within them before disappearing, shocking the older man in process. I have to protect her. I was never going to stop you, I was merely suggesting you need help, he said while feeling proud at the young boy's sense of duty. Wait. They turned to see the young ambassador and the two knights walking towards them. Please accept our help. I should have expected something like this to happen and been more cautious, he said before raising his hands to let the two knights move ahead of him. Let Monica and Alois also join you, they will be of great help. Naruto tried to protest but was cut off. Of course, Jin nodded and then turned towards Naruto. I can't leave the emperor's side because of my duty, so the young ambassador's offer is perfect. This way the emperor will be protected and you get some assistance. Take it, Naruto. The blonde couldn't argue back as he knew that was true, but he still looked at the three Britannians with cold eyes. This was too good of an excuse for them to give him help, but without it, he would have a harder time rescuing the young princess. Besides, if they attempt to betray him, he will ensure that they will never return back to their country alive. Alright, let's go. With that, the protector of future empress and the two knights left, while the Prince of Britannia concealed a hidden smile. While the new protector was a bit of an unexpected element, it won't make much of a difference in his campaign to win his seat on the throne. After all, a mere fighter with no last name can't possibly hope to derail his plans. Under the orange sky of the setting sun, three figures could be seen running towards the great temple of the palace, a young blonde boy and two noble knights right behind him. Lee called out the boy when he spotted some of the temple monks looking at him with serious looks. They mostly likely already heard of the prince's kidnapping. I need transportation, the boy ordered while the monk nodded and briskly left. Chen, quickly get me weapon. Any available weapon will do. Just get it fast. Sir bowed a female monk and quickly left while the remaining monks continued to listen to Naruto's orders. I'm not letting those bastards get away with this, the blonde growled. Let's go. Move out. The two noble knights, Monica and Alois, were a bit shocked at how quickly the monks obeyed the Naruto's orders. There were no hesitations when they listened to the commands. The said teen then looked over his shoulder and gave the knights a cold stare. You guys best be ready, the second you two start slowing me down, I will leave you behind. The female would-be knight, Monica, glared at the boy for a moment before taking a breath to calm herself. I know you are greatly worried for Princess Tianzi's safety, but rest assured we will do our best in fulfilling Prince Shinizal's orders to save her. Alright, but you better keep up, Naruto stated before he quickly left to get other preparations done. He was not going to waste any more time, he will save Tianzi, no matter what or hell die trying. Naruto, the first monk came back holding a ring of keys. I got you right, and some intel. Some of the monks guarding the walls managed to spot the kidnapper and know where he is heading. Hess taking the princess towards the place where Shifu found you all those years ago. The wasteland. Why there of all places? Naruto muttered before shaking his head to clear unnecessary thoughts. Move out. Quickly. Where is this place? Alois, the male knight asked as he followed Naruto into a garage-looking building and noticed a run-down jeep in it. Well. Are you going to answer, monkey? Sigh before I became a member of the court and was barely, I dunno 7. I was lost in the wasteland and had to kill people for survival. He recounted a memory that now seemed like it was a lifetime ago. After getting inside the jeep he quickly started up the car, enjoying the sound of the engine roar as he floored the gas pedal into its highest gear. It takes nearly 2 hours to reach the wasteland from here, but I know some shortcuts. You killed when you were a kid, Monica cried out from the annoyingly loud engine. She could barely hear Naruto's voice. Didn't have much of a choice out there, it was either kill or be killed, Naruto answered, revving the engine before speeding off. That's where Shifu found me, he took me in and made me what I am today. What about your parents? She asked, ignoring the glare she got from her teacher. I rather hope you didn't just run away from home because of something, Stu. I never had any parents, or at least I think I don't have any. The boy roared back while trying to remember which sand dune had his makeshift landmark marking the shortcut. I can't recall any memories before I was 7, nor how I even ended up in that sandy wasteland in the first place. All I know is that when I woke up out there, I was spotted by some bandits who were willingly going to sell me off to be some Chinese lady's little boy toy on the side. I wasn't going to let that happen. A few moments later the boy's eyes shone in recognition. There. Hold on, Naruto turned the jeep sharp left onto a rocky road while Monica grabbed onto her seat as the sudden force nearly flung her away. We should be coming up soon, he informed, knowing that at top speed it won't take them more than an hour to reach their goal. That was rather quick, Monica commented appreciation. I told you, I know shortcuts, Naruto reminded. Alright Chinese boy, since we still have some time, tell me who would want to hurt your little fake princess, Aloy said in a condescending tone and then smirked at his clear insult towards the royalty. Screech. Naruto suddenly hit the brakes, stopping the car almost instantly and afterwards grabbed the man by the throat while giving him a death glare. Don't you dare call her fake. He snarled, making the knight flinch slightly at the sight of barely suppressed rage within the boy's eyes. Just because we're working together doesn't mean I won't hesitate to kill you if insult Tianzi's name like that ever again, he stated and then released the knight. Few seconds later, they were speeding down the road again. Alois coughed hard as he held his throat. Fine, then who do you think would dare to kidnap Her Highness, Tianzi? Naruto sighed as he still detected some mockery within the knight's words, but decided to ignore it for now. I don't know, can't be anybody from our side, Tianzi is still a kid, not to mention Emperor Yao is still alive, so she doesn't have any political power or say in regards to ruling the country, but they clearly need her alive, or they would have killed her the moment they attacked the castle. Meaning that they most likely want to use her as a hostage, Monica finished Naruto's sentence as she understood that much, then radicals maybe. Unlikely, Yao has not done anything crazy to warrant enemy uprising from within, Naruto shook his head at her suggestion. Then perhaps disgruntled terrorists from the outside. Aloy stated as he knew that quite a few countries that had far too many of those criminals, that would add up. No, that can't be it since Shifu and the Emperor have eradicated every terrorist cell close to our borders, the terrorist groups that are further away are already surrounded by too many enemies, and to provoke the dragon would be the same as signing your own death warrant, Naruto stated as he tried to think of any enemies that would want to kidnap Tianzi, plus. Would terrorists even bother taking hostages after successfully infiltrating the castle? The blonde girl gave a look of confusion at Naruto, what do you mean? Think about it, they managed to sneak into a ceremony where some of the country's most important figures, including Prince Shinazal, were gathered at one place. Why take hostages when you could have easily caused another explosion and take them all out? Naruto informed while staring hard into the distance. Why kidnap the princess when you have a clear shot at taking out most of China's ruling body? Alois nodded at that knowledge. That does make sense, terrorists are extremists, and they would jump at the chance to kill that many important people. Kidnapping the princess would more trouble than it's worth. Maybe they plan to kill her later to set an example. Monica suggested. Did you not just hear us, you idiot? Aloy said angrily as the girl cowered at his tone. What kind of an example would that set besides paint bigger target on their backs? Why go for small fish when the lake is full of bigger prey? No, these people knew what they were doing. That is true, Monica agreed, albeit meekly. The enemy most likely knew that royal guards would prioritize Emperor first, and the princess would be less protected. Then once again we're back at the main question. Who did it? Aloy sighed as he looked behind the car. Are you sure this is the way where the kidnappers went? Positive, Naruto stated resolutely. Aloy snarled at the boy's answer and tried to grab the wheel. I don't think you do. There is nothing but dunes of sand around us, so they could be in any direction. Let the experienced one guide you, he cried out in pain when Naruto twisted his hand in one quick motion. Back off, asshole. We still have payments left on this baby. Do you have any idea how small a monk's salary is? Naruto shouted before gasping in pain when Alois grabbed his hair. Really, you fight like a little girl. Stop. Monica grabbed the two and with amazing strength separated them. I think I see them. Naruto smiled as he indeed saw a large armored vehicle creating a large dust cloud ahead. Alois himself clicked his tongue in annoyance. Damn it, he actually did find them. Alright people, hang on. Naruto exclaimed before revving up the engine up to the maximum. The tires screeched while the engine roared loudly from the increase in speed. BROOOOOM. Shit. Alois cursed as the jeep came up to the side of the enemy vehicle. Once close enough, Naruto pulled out a rod and stuck it in between the wheel to lock it in place. What are you doing? Monica cried out. The blonde's only reply was standing on top of the jeep's roof and then leaping from it to grab onto the armored vehicle. He quickly climbed on top of the machine's roof and pulled out a large blade that the monks had previously placed in the jeep for him. With a quick thrust, he stabbed the armored roof and surprisingly it went through. Hope this works, Naruto stated as firmly grasped the handle of the blade and let go of his footing. The instant he did so he was hit with the full force of motion sending him back, but despite that he did not let go of his weapon as it sliced the metal top like a hot knife through butter. Afterwards, he did a quick spin around while still firmly holding the blade and opened the roof like a can opener. But the enemy driver looked back and gasped upon seeing the roof cut off. Found ya? Naruto shouted as he looked down to see 9 members, including the driver, staring dumbly at him while Tianzi herself was bound, but otherwise unharmed sleeping in the passenger seat. The men themselves were dressed in a manner one would expect of typical desert bandits. Raggedy pants, shirts, overcoats and thick shawls wrapped around almost the entirety of their heads except for their eyes that were left uncovered, but Naruto's sharp mind easily discerned that these men were not mere criminals. From the shape of their eyes, body structure and what little skin he could see, Naruto concluded that these men were definitely not of Asian descent, but Caucasian. The biggest giveaway of their false impersonations were the weapons they had. These were almost brand new guns and swords, and from their shape and form, the blonde can tell that they weren't made in China or any other parts of Asia for that matter. Those were Western weapons. As a kind gesture for not harming my lady, I will make sure your deaths are quick. Naruto threw his blade at the back of the driver's head, killing him instantly. The now dead driver slumped forward, causing the brakes to hit all at once and turn over the car, while the rest of the fake bandits were panicking. Naruto smiled as he grabbed his charge in midair and held her tightly. By some miracle they landed on the sandy ground as the armored vehicle still tumbled down the rocky road. That shouldn't be possible. Monica could not help but mutter in awe after taking control of the jeep wheel. Despite witnessing the whole experience, she still couldn't comprehend. Thank goodness, Naruto sighed in relief upon seeing the young heiress unharmed and sleeping peacefully in his arms. Alright, my lady, let's get you home. His relief was short-lived, however, when he had to quickly lay her down to dodge an incoming blade. After rolling a few feet backwards and taking a defensive stance, the blonde stares menacingly at 5 still alive kidnappers, with the closest one guarding his liege. All of them had their blades drawn and were standing in formation with proper sword stances, ready to attack at any moment. Yeah. These guys were definitely not some simple bandits or hired mercenaries, they were well-trained and skilled soldiers. Thankfully, Monica and Alois came to his side and drew their own swords. Out of curiosity, how good are you two in a fight? I can handle myself, Monica answered curtly while getting into her own sword stance. Against these ruffians. This is nothing, Alois added, before pulling on his collar. If all they are capable of knocking out a defenseless girl, then they won't stand any chance against a knight of the round. Good, because we're ending this now, Naruto stated as he pulled out his blade and rushed forward. XXXXXXXXXX. Imperial Palace of the Chinese Emperor. Bedroom of the royal family. XXXXXXXXXXX. Jin Yao silently called out while frowning heavily. Yes, sire. Jin answered as king and friend. The two were on the balcony that was part of a room that once belonged to Yao's beloved late wife. Am I at fault for selfishly choosing her as my one true wife? The emperor asked while staring at the beautiful star-filled night sky, a sky that he once shared with the love of his wife. What do you mean? Jin asked confused. Were you not happy with her? Of course I was and still am, but as beloved by the commoners she was. We both know that many of my ideas of change for our country were mostly conceived because of her. By hearing of her painful past, of how she was used by her own parents to escape the poor lives they lived, it made me realize how sheltered life of a royal member really is. Yao stated while remembering how much of an influence she was on him. And you believe that all bad that has happened to her and is now happening to Tianzi is part of some sort of punishment for the choices you made? Jin questioned in disbelief. You know, I always hated my father. Yao gave a small smile despite his words. He had bedded a lot of women in his life and had never done anything good for either his people or the country, and yet he loved me more than anything and considered me as his only true child just because I was able to outclass all of my siblings when it came to the succession of the throne. Sire, Jin gave a saddened look. None of this is your fault. Really? Do you remember what he did to my siblings after announcing me as the heir to the throne? He disowned all of them, threw them out to the streets, and those tried resist had met even sadder fates. After he passed away and my time to rule had arrived, I did everything I could to not end up like him. I dedicated my life towards the betterment of our country, and instead of continuously gaining more wives just for the sake of pleasure, I singled out one out of many and made her the empress. I thought I did all for the right reasons, as from the bottom of my heart, I truly loved her and love her still. And yet Yao gave a soft sigh at the twisted sense of irony of trying to become a better man. But losing so much more in return. Jin became silent as he knew what his friend was going to say next. Yet I still failed to resist one of the most important of temptations. After all, Tianzi is not my true firstborn. XXXXXXXXXX. Sand wastelands. XXXXXXXXXX. DRR. The blonde warrior gritted his teeth as he barely managed to get some ground against his opponents. At first, Naruto thought that these pretenders were on a level of skilled soldiers, but he was wrong. These guys were clearly elites. Out of 5 of them, Naruto managed to kill 2, but at the cost of some injuries and exhaustion. He was lucky that most of the wounds he received were either short but deep cuts or long but shallow cuts. No disabling or fatal injuries so far, but that might change as he prepared to engage the third kidnapper. Note to self, make sure to bring plenty of backup next time and better weapons, the blonde muttered to himself. He then looked towards Monica and Alois to see how they're doing. The female Britannian was doing surprisingly well. She might only be facing off against one opponent, but out of all kidnappers he was the biggest size, and judging from his swordsmanship, the most skilled one as well. Naruto spotted numerous wounds on the kidnapper, and it was clear that Monica was on the winning side. She really does prove her mettle as an apprentice for the Knights of the Round. Alois on the other hand was facing off against two opponents and from the looks of it, was stuck in stalemate. He was clearly skilled, but his enemies chose to use the surround and bait tactic. While one of them engages Alois in front, the other one goes around and tries to attack from behind. The male Britannian knight would have no choice but to disengage and create some distance to dodge the sneak attack. It seemed that Naruto had been lucky in regards that the two opponents he had killed before had both engaged the boy in a frontal assault, allowing Naruto to track their movements more easily. After catching his breath, Naruto decided to assist Monica first. Once they kill off the big guy, the two of them will be able to assist Alois in his battle. But just as the boy was about to make his move, Alois did something unexpected. Ah! Naruto was in disbelief as Alois suddenly got behind Monica, and before she could turn around, he hit her hard on the head with the pommel of his sword, knocking her out. Afterwards he smiled darkly at the bodyguard of Tianzi. "Well, that certainly took longer than expected, even lost some good people," he said while chuckling lightly. Soon after, the smile disappeared and was replaced by an intense, hate-filled glare. "I must commend you, I sincerely thought that you wouldn't be able to catch up to the escape vehicle or even best some of my best men." Naruto clutched his blade harder as he glared at the traitorous knight. If looks could kill, then everything in his line of sight would have been incinerated. "Bastard. You're part of this kidnapping," Naruto growled. "Well, of course, how else we were supposed to create a peaceful resolution?" The man sighed as if explaining something easy to a young child. "You call this peaceful?" Naruto muttered darkly. "Why would kidnapping Tianzi lead to peace between our nations? What would you gain from this?" At this point his eyes were about to shoot beams of flames at the traitor. "That's why I hate dealing with backwater countries such as this, you people will never understand," Alois frowned while shaking his head. "What's there to understand? You kidnapped Tianzi, plain and simple," Naruto stated, slowly positioning himself in front of the body of the princess so he would be able to protect her better. "The strong need to shepherd the weak so that everyone could live in peace." The knight smiled kindly. "Your nation is full of scheming and corruption, old outdated ways of life. Only the holy light of the Great Britannia Empire can set you on the right path, otherwise you all will be left behind." Says the guy who comes from a royal family that marries its own cousins and often kill each other, despite the blood they share. Oh, and let's not forget about the giant asshole you call the emperor, who has a severe superiority complex. I mean, that hairstyle makes him look like a monkey. Oh ho haha. Naruto insulted the knight's country while making monkey sounds. If he were to fail and die today, then he will at least ensure that he got some kicks in, both physical and verbal. Alois felt a blood vessel in his vein pop while his eyebrow and the corner of his lip twitched madly in anger. "I always wondered why he marries so many women, but doesn't have as many children. Guess that's just his way of compensating." The blonde started before quickly jumping back to avoid a wild sword slash from Alois. "Oh, struck a nerve, did I? How dare you insult his royal majesty?" Alois fumed. "I will have your head on a platter. That monkey eats brains. I thought they eat whoops." Naruto tried to mock, but was forced to duck in order to avoid a wild slash from a big Britannian soldier in disguise, the same one who previously faced off against Monica. Naruto then quickly spun around while still crouching, with his blade extended. The big Britannian cried out in pain when he felt one of his legs get cut off. Before he could fully crumble to the ground, with a quick slash Naruto cut his throat. "One down, 3 more to go. I thought you would be more educated due to your upbringing by Master Jin, but all I see is yet another savage that needs to be put down." Alois snapped after witnessing another one of his men dying to the blonde bastard. With a roar of a beast he charged forward, lunging his sword at Naruto again. However, Naruto showed no fear and instead was smiling. It was true that when Naruto was around his shifu, he always had to fight in a more honorable way, so his teacher won't lose face, but on the inside, he was a dirty fighter, someone who is willing to create and use any advantage by any means necessary. When it comes to protecting his lady, Naruto will never hold anything back. Savage am I. "Well, you're in for a terrible shock when you find out how savage I can really get," he declared while moving away from another slash. Then, when the noble knight prepared to deliver a downward slash, Naruto grabbed by the hand a silently approaching disguised Britannian and pulled him forward, making him take the hit instead. Alois' eyes widened as his face was splattered by the blood of his ally and barely managed to block in time some incoming throwing knives, but the last remaining Britannian soldier standing behind him wasn't so lucky. Now it was just him and the blonde bastard left standing. After wiping his eyes clean of the blood, he glared with pure murder at Naruto. "Damn you. You disgusting savage, is there no low you won't sink to?" Alois raged. "I don't know, is there? I'm always prepared to do a lot worse than this," Naruto stated, and it was true, he did remember killing people in their sleep when he was still all alone in the desert. "Bastard. It's about time someone teaches you how a real warrior fights." Alois snarled before rushing in and thrusting his sword in quick successions, surprising the young man at the power and speed behind them. "Whoa. Watch it. Missed me. Try again. Naruto mocked while dodging every swing, purposely insulting him too. Drip drip. After quickly creating some distance, the blonde glanced down slightly and saw a small wound appear on his chest. Okay, you nicked me, good for you, he said jokingly, but inwardly he was panicking. It seems that Alois was slowly regaining his focus and was no longer making simple mistakes, while the Britannian warrior might not be on the same level as Jin. He is still a fully fledged veteran who fought in major wars. Whatever experience Naruto had accumulated up until now is nothing compared to a battle-hardened knight of the round. HMPH, there is no point pretending, you may act confident, but your posture betrays you. I will admit, taking out a small group of elite soldiers is not an easy task, especially for someone so young, but you have reached your limits. The accumulated wounds are starting to take their toll on your body, and the more this fight drags on, the more exhausted you get. I, on the other hand, have plenty of strength to spare. Surrender now and I might just spare your life, Alois smugly declared. Man, you sure do talk a lot when you are off the leash, huh? Is your tactic to talk me to death? Naruto jokes. Before the knight had a chance to retort, the blonde rushed at him with as much speed as he could muster. For a fraction of a moment, Alois was slightly surprised at the sudden burst of speed from the boy, but then quickly recovered and made a horizontal slash, hoping to bisect the blonde, and again was surprised when instead of ducking under the swing, the boy jumped high in the air with his feet just barely avoiding the edge of the sword. Not wasting any time, Naruto quickly swung down his blade, hoping to cleave his enemy's head in two. Unfortunately, the knight was able to react in time, brought up his sword to parry. The two weapons collided, and that moment Naruto's luck seems to have run out, as the next moment, his blade snapped. After landing on the ground, Naruto quickly jumped back and put some distance between himself and his opponent. He then looked at the remaining handle of his now broken blade and tossed it aside. Aloy smirked at boy's action. So, what are you going to do now, boy? Your weapon has failed you and your strength continues to fade. I will once again offer you the chance to surrender, as it won't feel quite right to kill a defenseless child, but I'm prepared to make an exception. Yeah, Naruto sighed as he looked at the bright full moon. Damn, this is taking too long. I gotta finish this fast before my body finally gives out. Hang in there just a bit longer, Tianzi. He looked back to see his charge still sleeping silently and smiled kindly at how peaceful she looked. After a few moments passed, the boy approached one of the dead bodies of the disguised Britannian soldiers and picked a short sword from the ground next to it. TCH, Western weapons are so heavy, he slightly complained at the fact that they had no real beauty or elegance, but my nation's pride is second to my duty as Tianzi's protector. Weapons are only for killing after all. So who cares about aesthetics? What makes you think you can protect her all on your own? Alois questioned as he slowly approached Naruto with his sword poised to strike. I met someone a long time ago, back when I was still surviving alone in the desert. She had been the strongest person I had fought before I met Shifu, Naruto said while smiling at the memory. Even after all this time, I can still clearly recall her exact words after our battle ended in an overwhelming victory for her. Those who want to achieve their goals must get rid of anything in their path, or else they should never dream of it. With those words, Naruto leaped forward once more while throwing the short sword at the knight, causing his opponent stop as his track to block the projectile. After landing in front of him, Naruto quickly grabbed the fallen short sword and sent dozens of strikes and kicks at the man, who had no choice but to block the attacks, as parrying was not an option. This brat, how is he still able to move like this? Alois was slightly stunned at the sheer skill the kid kept showing him. It was a damn shame he wasn't born in Britannia. He would have achieved a far greater status there than anything he could have ever gained in this backwater country. With great force, the knight used the pommel of his sword to knock away the blonde's weapon. Now all he has to go. Naruto smiled as his fist broke through his chainmail clothing. Surprise barehanded attack. Success. Sorry, it appears that I'm still lacking in technique, Shifu. XXXXXXXXXX. Flashback last year. XXXXXXXXXX. Damn it, I lost, Naruto gasped out while glaring at Jin, who was towering over him. To the side, Tianzi was looking at the blonde with horror-filled eyes, but that is to be expected since he was heavily bruised and covered in his own blood. Today was one of the days Jin decided to test blonde's progress and to see if he was ready to graduate from being an apprentice. Needless to say, Naruto had failed miserably. You're not ready yet, Naruto, Jin sighed. The boy was certainly improving, but he was still far from becoming a true warrior. One more time I can do this, Naruto grunted, struggling to his feet, but before he could fully stand, his legs gave out from too much strain and the young man collapsed to his knees. Enough, Jin ordered, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. No need to overexert yourself, you're simply going to hurt yourself more. But it's not fair. Naruto shouted while looking down. I trained day and night to master the style you taught me, yet you were able to beat me so easily. I wasn't able to land even the smallest of hits. He ranted before exhaustion finally got the better of him, his vision getting blurry. Tianzi quickly rushed to his side and gently laid him on his back while being mindful to not touch any of his bruises. "Here's more to this style than meets the eye," Jin stated mysteriously, his eyes gaining a far-off look, "something that you must discover on your own." "Jin, I think it's time to tell Naruto the truth." The three were startled when they suddenly heard Emperor Yao's voice. The monks that had gathered to spectate the match quickly bowed in respect. "I know you like to put on the act of an ancient master from a far-off land, but this is starting to get old. Your fighting style isn't of Chinese origin." "Your Highness," Jin frowned with a slight pout on his face. It was surprising that a man with such advanced age could do that and actually pull it off. "What do you mean, father?" Tianzi asked, and the answer she received was a mere pat on the head. Now it was her turn to pout in childish annoyance. "Yeah, what do you mean it's not of Chinese origin?" Naruto furrowed his brows. Jin looked sternly at the gathered monks, and all of them quickly vacated the area. "Sigh, I suppose have waited long enough, Naruto. Unlike Emperor Yao, I am not a full-blooded Chinese. In fact, I have some Japanese blood in me just like you, from what I can tell." "So you are of mixed heritage, but does that really matter?" Tianzi stated honestly, surprising others by how honest her opinion was. "Haha, well said, Lady Tianzi," Jin commented with a wide smile. The next moment his expression turned dead serious. "Unfortunately, the same opinion is not shared among the rest of the nobility, the corrupt part to be more precise. If the eunuchs were to learn of my heritage, they would use all available ancient traditions and laws just to remove me from your father's side. It would also create a perfect opportunity for them to place one of their own people in my position instead. I cannot stress enough how important it is that this knowledge remains a secret now. Enough of this serious mood, and let's get to the reason I was kicking your ass so easily." Jin, Uncle Jin, Dick, and exasperated Yao, a disappointed Tianzi, and snidely pissed Naruto complained at the same time. "You see, before I became the Emperor's guardian, I used to live in Japan and had spent most of the time there learning and perfecting various martial art styles of ancient Japan. When I finally moved to China, I started incorporating various Chinese materials arts so no one would be able to recognize my mastery at Japanese techniques," Jin explained while stroking his beard. "But what does that have to do with anything?" Naruto crossed his arms in annoyance only to wince in pain the next second after his body reminded him that he is still injured. "Naruto, what I have been teaching you?" Jin asked. "How to turn the human body into a tasty paste," Naruto said in all honesty. Tianzi turned slightly blue after remembering how much Naruto bled during the test. "That's a bit of an extreme answer, but looking at your current state I can sort of understand why would you think that." Yao's sweat dropped. "HMPH, cheeky brat, no, Naruto," Jin stated and afterwards pulled out his sword. "In today's world, almost all battles are fought with some sort of weapon always being used, but did you know that the most traditional Chinese martial arts did not rely on weapons? No blades, no lances or any other types of weapons. Don't forget about the rage, one of the deadliest weapons of them all," Naruto said with a peaceful smile. The two older men looked at Blonde oddly. "My point being," Jin cleared his throat, "when it comes to battle, what you need is not honor, but options. It's the reason why the monks here don't just train in materials, but also learn various other things like poison making, engineering, and other useful skills. If used right, each skill gained can be used as a hidden ace against your enemy," he elaborated. He then took a few bricks and stacked them all into a small tower. After taking a deep breath, the old warrior split the small tower in half with a single but fluid chopping motion using his hand. "Japanese, Chinese, Britannian, all fighting styles can be used as long as they help you in achieving victory. Do you understand?" "So what you are saying is that the reason I lost was because I focused too much on a single aspect of combat instead of trying to find other ways I could have improved myself," Naruto answered after thinking for a bit. "Exactly, it's just like that old saying, fight smarter, not harder," Jin quoted. A moment later, a savage smile appeared on his face. "Now, my young student, go get yourself cleaned and healed, for tomorrow your real training begins. First, I will teach you how you can kill someone using a simple pencil. XXXXXXXXXX. Current time. XXXXXXXXXX. Shit, that hurts, Naruto complained in pain while his left arm fell lifelessly to his side. His right hand gripped the now useless limb. I knew that there would be consequences for pushing myself like that, but still, it hurt so much more than I expected. Damn, Alois wheezed in pain after spitting out some blood, shocking Naruto at how the knight somehow survived his trump card. "If I hadn't leaned back as much as possible at the last second, your fist would have completely shattered my ribs, piercings my lungs and possibly my heart as well." "That was the idea," Naruto answered calmly despite his surprise attack failing to deliver death, "but the protector of princess is not out of options yet. From the way you talk, I can only guess that you already knew about this technique, right?" We were given a full dossier about you and your abilities before our mission began, yet your strength is much greater than I had anticipated, but it's still not enough, but rest assured, your princess will know that you died fighting like a man. Sorry to disappoint, but I'm not dying here today, but I can't say the same about you. Naruto declared as he threw a round object at Alois, one bomb coming right at ya. Alois scoffed as he gently slapped away the thrown item, as if I would ever fall for. The man's eyes slowly widened in horror when he realized that he actually slapped away a grenade. Shit. Boom. After rolling away from the explosion, the knight's eyes squinted as he was nearly blinded by sand and black smoke. Damn kid. Where did he get that explosive? I asshole. Aloy smirked as he turned in time to where Naruto's voice came from. Fool, when you try to launch sneak attack on someone, always keep your mouth shut. The knight quickly sliced the shadowy figure behind him. Goodbye, monkey. But when the smoke cleared, his eyes widened at what he had actually cut, and few milliseconds later, he felt an increasingly stinging sensation. He looked down and spotted a silver blade stabbing into his chest. Damn brat, and your savage tricks, Aloy said as he fell back onto the ground, motionless. What the knight saw during his last moments was a bisected body of a disguised Britannian soldier with Naruto standing not too far behind it. During the chaos caused by the blast, the blonde took the nearest enemy corpse and used it to take the hit. Aloy's instincts were too sharp, and an open sword attack would have definitely failed, but the knight couldn't have predicted the blonde stabbing him through the corpse. The guardian of the emperor's daughter visibly shook after realizing just how close to death's door he was during the entire battle. He literally had to pull out everything just to kill one man. That. Why? Naruto's eyes widened in shock, and he quickly turned around to see a horrified Monica standing a few dozen feet away, eyes filled with fear from looking at the scene before her, her teacher, Alois, laying dead on the ground, and a Shaolin warrior holding a blood-dripping blade. Why, you bastard. He was my teacher and you killed him. And no, this is not what it looks like. The teen tried to explain. Naruto. The blonde heard his teacher's voice and turned to see the Chinese military and Britannia forces quickly surrounding them, while Jin along with Emperor Yao walked directly towards him. Don't say anything. But. Not a word. Jin stared hard at his student before directing his stare at the smirking corpse of Alois. You don't need to explain anything, we already know that this man had a hand in kidnapping our emperor's child. Alois did that can't be right, it's not possible, Monica muttered in shock. The knight of the round might have been an arrogant man and often hateful towards outsiders, but he was also a fair teacher and would have never betrayed Britannia's allies. Monica, the girl's head snapped to the side to see her prince walking towards her. Once he was close enough, he placed his hand on her shoulder and spoke in a concerned voice. Are you well? I am terribly sorry for what has happened to your teacher. Don't worry, I swear on my name that justice will be served. A murderous aura surrounded Jin as he wanted to kill the prick of a prince right there and then, but he stayed his hand as he knew that repercussions would be far too severe. What did you just say? Alois was conspiring to kidnap Princess Tianzi. What proof do you have? Schniezel's smile was the dictionary picture of a perfect Prince Charming. In fact, the surrounding evidence points towards Naruto being the main culprit. Of course, it might have also been an accident. Naruto could have fatally wounded Alois when he bisected the kidnapper and not expected the honorable knight get caught in the attack. The prince explained kindly as Naruto's heart dropped at the fellow blonde's words. Then again, it is quite possible that Naruto himself might have the mastermind behind this whole. The schemer quickly shut his mouth when he felt an invisible heavy pressure befall upon him. It's as if he was being pressed down by an entire mountain. He shakily tilted his slightly to the side, and what greeted him were the glaring eyes of Emperor Yao, no longer soft or hard, but just ice-cold eyes with barely restrained fury behind them. I would advise you to keep that possibility to yourself, Ambassador. An official investigation must be conducted first before coming up with conclusions. The investigation will be carried out by Britannia and our own people, just to ensure that you will be doing a thorough job. The dead bodies will be taken to our city so we can run tests as quickly as possible, the Emperor commanded, leaving no room for objections, and also ensuring that Schniezel won't be able to take advantage of this situation. After recompassing himself, the prince turned away. Fine, he said before taking a moment to regain his perfectly calm smile. Lady Monica, he got the attention of the female knight. Please come with us and give your statement, we need everything to be fair and true. The blonde girl gave a silent nod as she walked away with the prince. As for Naruto, things have turned grim. Not only did he kill a member of the Round Table, his credibility to prove that he was in the right was in jeopardy. It didn't help that Monica only saw the last moments of his fight with Alois, making it much more difficult to prove his innocence. Naruto. His mind snapped out of his despair-inducing numbness to see Tianzi waking up with a soft smile, despite the tired state she was in. You saved me. The blonde's eyes widened in shock before softening and a kind smile graced his lips. Quickly walking up, he reached out and placed his hands gently on her own. Seeing her smile became even brighter, filled his heart with warmth. "Lihua, my princess," he softly called her name. Despite everything that happened today, and no matter what might come next, this moment of warmth between them was worth it all. "Naruto," Lihua whispered and gently grasped his hands. The stars of the night sky seemed to shine a bit brighter just for the two of them. XXXXXXXXXX. Imperial Palace of the Chinese Emperor. Royal Dining Room. A few days after the incident. XXXXXXXXXXX. Still nothing. Naruto said as he, Lihua, Jin, and Emperor were dining while the others were eating, while the blonde barely touched his Peking duck. The Emperor shook his head. "Yes, the investigation has revealed no evidence that can be directly used against us nor Britannia, unfortunately, which now leaves the question, will they let the death of Alois go?" Tianzi stopped eating as she looked down in shame, knowing that she was the reason why the mood in the palace was sour as of late. "Princess, this is not your fault," Jin assured, "you have done nothing to cause any of what had transpired yesterday." "Indeed, Sai, if we only had some proof to show that Britannia was involved in the kidnapping, it would have shown the world how dirty that country really is," her father stated as he knew that Britannia was full of itself due to their numerous conquests, "but as it stands now, we're at a stalemate, it's to the point where we might even have to go to war." Naruto nodded as he took a small piece of his meal and chewed on it slowly. Jin and Yao never thought they would see the day where the blonde wouldn't be his energetic self, and this made them hate Britannia even more. "And Naruto, let's go to the city. I want to see the city like last time," Tianzi suggested with a smile and shook Naruto's arm in an attempt to get him excited, but he didn't budge and just continued to slowly eat with a despondent look. It seemed that the events from few days ago were weighing down heavily on his mind. "Lihua, let Jin take you. I need to talk to Naruto, it's important," the Emperor said. Tianzi was hesitant to comply, but from the serious look in her father's eyes she knew there was no room for argument. She felt Jin place his hand on her shoulder and looked up to see him smiling reassuringly. She worriedly glanced at Naruto for one final time and then let herself be escorted out to the room. "My Emperor, what's gonna happen to me?" Naruto asked slowly. Ever since he returned to the palace, the slow feeling of dread was continuously building up inside him. He desperately wanted to know what will be done with him, if only for the peace of mind. "Naruto, before we talk, there is someone I want you to speak with first, as much as I wish for it not to be true, but this person is the one who is responsible for placing this heavy burden upon your shoulders." "Huh?" Naruto looked confusingly at the Emperor. Before could ask more, he heard someone enter the room and slowly approaching the table. Naruto turned his gaze towards the unknown newcomer and wondered how is this person responsible for his plight. XXXXXXXXXX. In the homeland of Britannia. A few days after the incident. XXXXXXXXXXX. Schneasel. The blonde prince lowered his head as he was kneeling in front of his father, Charles I. Britannia, the 98th Emperor of the Holy Land. The man sat on his Grand I's throne, and at the side stood few members from his family and the military, who were called to witness this meeting. "Yes, father. Is it true that Alois is dead?" The white-haired man asked in an authoritative voice. The emperor had read the report in regards to the incident in China, and needless to say, he was not happy about it. "Yes, father," Schneasel confirmed while lowering his head even more. "So, because of your actions, we have lost one of our elite knights," Charles stated in even tone. "I have planned this," the prince said, knowing full well that his father was always aware of his schemes. The blonde clenched his fists hard, and if one were to look closely at his eyes, they would see traces of burning anger within them. "Explain yourself," the emperor ordered. "If everything went well and according to the original plan, you would have been spared the embarrassment of this shame. Why do this now? What could you have possibly achieved from this?" "I believe that we could have ended the fighting with the Chinese Federation by taking away something that the emperor values the most," Schneasel answered, trying his best to hide his true intentions, but the imposing glare from Charles still forced the truth out of him. "You would have put the Chinese emperor's daughter into our custody and held her hostage?" Charles questioned with narrowed eyes, "and you would let the shame follow us?" "The shame would have never been ours if someone else was accused of the plan," the blonde prince explained with a smile. "I was assured that a patsy would have been found to take the blame." "The scapegoat, and who, pray tell, is this person who helped you with the plan?" Charles asked as the prince shook his head. The blonde stood up and stared directly into his father's in the eyes. "I promised to keep my accomplice's name a secret in the off chance that we were to be caught." "I see," Charles said, his eyes still narrowed. "So how do you propose to fix this problem?" "Because of you, our two nations will face inevitable war," he stated, but on the inside, he wasn't really worried since that outcome wasn't a problem for him and his empire. They are the strongest in the world and will defeat any opposing force. The main problem in that formula was that if they do invade, then truth regarding the incident in China will be exposed, destroying his country's image and might even cause revolts in already conquered nations. "Simple, we take away one of their greatest future assets," Schneasel answered with a smirk. "What would that be?" The emperor raised an eyebrow in inquiry. "We take away the apprentice of Master Jin," Schneasel elaborated. "It is well known that while Jin has many students, he never truly had a true successor until now. By taking away his apprentice, we are effectively removing the future replacement for their greatest warrior and the guardian of their future ruler. This will also have an effect on their morale as well." "I've seen how people look at him there," the young man explained, remembering Naruto's strong relationship with royal family. Even though the boy himself said he wasn't close to them, the soldiers and guards treated him with respect, while some of the nobles were already wary of him. All this for a mere child. Charles frowned, having a hard time believing that a mere child could pose that much danger. "I assure you that looks can be deceiving. He may be a boy, but underneath all that is a killer. He was even able to kill Alois," Shinzel reminded his father, who nodded at that accomplishment. "Well, the boy did use tricks and deception to achieve victory, and Alois was the most arrogant of the current knights. He was still very talented, and there was no questioning his might. Yet a child nearly 2 decades younger was able to best him." Charles stared hard at his son, taking in all the information he was given. After what seemed like forever, he finally said, "And you are sure this will benefit our country?" "At first, no," the skillful schemer stated. "We need more than him simply staying here as a prisoner for us not to invade, so if I may suggest a plan. XXXXXXXXXX. Back in China. XXXXXXXXXX." Naruto's eyes widened at the sight of the woman in front of him, and despite his best efforts he was not able to stop himself from blushing. She was that beautiful. The woman was somewhat tall, possessed lithe fair skin, and a body figure that even models would be jealous of. She had beautiful shoulder-length black hair that was styled in a bob cut. Her eyes were of beautiful light purple color and were so clear that anyone could easily get lost staring at them. Her breasts were C-cup in size, and Naruto had to mentally reprimanded himself for recognizing her measurement. Damn those personal attendants that Shifu had assigned to him, they put weird ideas in his head. Another thing that caught his attention was that despite her legs being slender and beautiful, Naruto saw slight outlines of leg muscles. This woman can definitely unleash some mean kicks if she chose to. Her clothes were untraditional as well. While most women of Chinese nobility and royalty like to wear either extravagant and gaudy robes or beautiful Chinese dresses, this young woman chose to wear more modern clothes. Starting from the top, she wore a dark blue short jacket with long sleeves, and underneath it, she had a dark gray cashmere sweater. The skirt she wore was long and black in color. The skirt also split just before her thighs, and if Naruto's eyes weren't deceiving him, she appeared to be wearing tight shorts underneath the skirt. Finally, to complete the look, the woman wore high-heeled, knee-length dark boots. "Who are you?" Naruto asked after finally recompassing himself to ask coherent questions. "I am," she looked at the emperor, who nodded reassuringly at her before leaving the room. "I am Emperor Yao's firstborn daughter and Lihua's older half-sister, Nunnally." Naruto looked surprised. Lihua's half-sister? That couldn't be true, right? Jin told him that being the emperor allowed Yao to have many wives, but the photo in the Yao former bedroom showed hid with only one wife, and from what Naruto had observed, the emperor showed not even a remote interest in any other women. "Yes," she answered. She then caught the blonde off guard by bowing deeply. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, all of this is my fault. None of this should have happened. Because of me, my little sister was put in danger." "Wait, what are you talking about?" Naruto looked confused as she took a seat and sighed softly. "I guess I should start explaining things from the very beginning. You see, before Emperor Yao met little Lihua's mother and made her his empress, my mother was chosen and later made as one of the concubine wives for the emperor." She began. Naruto felt his mind slowly drift as her words were painted a vivid scene in his mind. "A long time ago," she continued as Naruto in his mind saw the palace from a few dozens years ago. Not much had changed, perhaps a few of the decorum were missing here and there, but he then saw younger Emperor Yao. While he seemed to be a few decades younger, he still retained some of his present features. Yao was recently crowned as the new ruler of the Chinese Federation after his father's passing. He took the title like a true emperor, and despite having a big harem of women set up for him, he showed no special interest in any of them. The only thing he cared about was running his nation and supporting its people. Soon the scene in Naruto's mind changed and he saw Yao sitting on his throne. The crowd of people in front of him were praising him as one of the greatest emperors to ever grace their nation, but members of the nobility standing behind him showed nothing but contempt, despite the many achievements and the love of the people he gathered during his first years as an emperor. The traditionalist and the eunuchs from nobility started pressuring him to sire a child as soon as possible. They sent him their most beautiful daughters to be wed as concubine wives in hopes that one of them would catch his fancy and would be made an official wife and an empress as well, but unlike his father, Yao never slept with any of them and made it resolutely clear that he is not interested in any of them. In the end, most of the wives gave up in trying to woo the emperor and simply enjoyed the luxuries they received from being his concubines. The scene then changes to show the Emperor Yao meeting one of the wives at the gardens of the palace, but that was until he met my sisters, Lihua's mother Fen Yanhu. Yao eyes softened for the first time in years when he spotted a beautiful white-haired woman with red wine-colored eyes. The woman watched as Yao slowly approached her and once close enough, the two gently embraced each other. She was the one woman he had truly fallen in love with, and she reciprocated his feeling with equal love. The days they spent together were pure bliss, but, while she was his one and only true love, she wasn't the first one to bear his child. Wait, Yao had Naruto's voice broke through the story, and the young woman made a small sound of confirmation. Yes, before Fen Yanhua was made part of Yao's many concubine wives, he was intimate with another woman. Well, it was intimate for them, given his years of pent-up. Ada Naruto shouted comically, no details please. Yes, of course, Nunnally cleared her throat, but a small mischievous smile had graced her lips. Moving on, when my father was first given his unwanted harem, he made sure to keep us much distance from the wives as possible, rejecting all of their advances, but my mother was different. Instead of throwing herself at him like a common bimbo, she offered him friendship. Nunnally then stopped her story for a moment and started giggling. Haha, I remember laughing when my mother told me that after she was married off as a concubine wife, one would normally expect that the groom and the bride would consummate their marriage after the wedding ceremony, but mother and father instead spend the whole night talking and drinking. Haha. Despite knowing how serious the story is, Naruto himself couldn't help but chuckle. He can only imagine how Yao's and Nunnally's mother's honeymoon would look like if they had one. They would most likely simply spend the whole day playing chess in the palace. After recompassing herself, Nunnally continued with the story. After a couple of years their relationship grew, but it never got past the friendship stage, that is until that one fateful night. Both mother and father didn't give me many details, but from little they told me. I know that father was in a very bad mood after a meeting with some particularly nasty nobles, and after having a bit too much to drink that night, his control over himself slipped. That night, father and mother did the deed. It was during the same night that I was conceived. After processing what he just learned, Naruto motioned for her to continue. The next day mother and father had a deep talk about their relationship, during which my mother confessed her love for him, but unfortunately, he could not return those feelings. While he treasured her dearly, the spark for intimate love simply wasn't there. So he decided to be honest and told her how he truly felt about the matter. For the next several days my mother cried a lot while father did his best to comfort her. Eventually, she accepted the reality of things and decided to remain as his friend. Her love for him might never fade away, but she would not force it upon him. Nunnally looked down and wiped away a stray teardrop from her cheek. Naruto wanted so bad to jump from his seat and embrace her in comfort, but he resisted the urge and instead offered handkerchief. She accepted it with a small smile, and after a few minutes of silence, she continued with her story. 9 months had passed since that night, and I was finally born. While mother and father weren't a true couple, they still loved me like every parent should and made sure that all my material and emotional needs were met. Since my birth a few years had passed and little Lihua's mother, Fen Yanhua, had finally arrived at the castle. Out of all the noble families, Fen Yanhua's family was the poorest and on the verge of collapse. One could even say they were on the verge of becoming beggars. Sending Fen to be married off to the emperor was the family's last-ditch attempt to save themselves, and they succeeded, partially. Now that definitely piqued Naruto's interest. When father laid his upon Fen Yanhua, for him it was love at first sight. That love only grew deeper the more he got to know her, and only after a few short months since her arrival, she was turned into his official wife and made empress. Fen Yanhua's parents at first believed that with their daughter being made an empress, they would be able to wash away all their troubles and curry favors by manipulating her, but what they didn't expect was for how deeply Fen would fall in love with the emperor. Fen refused to abuse her station to help her family, and this led to the family trying to force her to obey. That, in the end, proved to be their greatest mistake, as father descended upon them with the fury of a war god. I'm not sure how he punished them exactly, but last I heard, Fen's parents were seen working in some remote farm while the rest of the family was erased. Nunnally stated with a smirk. Naruto shivered at that. Something told him that he really didn't want to know the full details of what exactly Emperor Yao did. After the troubles with Fen's parents were settled, her relationship with father began to blossom even more. To the nobles, Fen's and Yao's relationship was like an eyesore that no matter what they tried, would never go away. To the common people their relationship was like a match made in heaven, and because of that belief, the support to the throne had increased. As for my mother, well, Despite seeing the love of her life taken away by another woman, she never held a grudge and was happy to support their love. Mother also told me that she even became best friends with Fen, and the two of them liked to pull pranks on stuck-up nobles, the girl said with clear delight in her words. In his mind, Naruto saw the image of two women pouring laxatives in the meals being prepared for the nobles HMPH. Bush League. He will give A+ for effort, but C in creativity. Why the hell is he suddenly thinking about pranks? Several years later, Fen gave birth to my little sister, and she was so cute. I remember how Mother and Fen couldn't separate ourselves from her the day she was born, even father didn't dare to interrupt our moment. I also remember that Fen was so happy that day that she promised father to have a threesome. Sorry, got a bit too excited at the memory. Anyway, the next day a huge crowd had gathered outside the palace to hear the emperor announce the birth of a future heir to the throne. It was amazing. Naruto nodded in agreement. I bet it was. Wait, if you are his first daughter, then why was Lihua named as the heiress to the throne? Shouldn't the firstborn inherit the throne by royal tradition? Nunnally sighed before explaining, normally you would be right, but that only applies if the firstborn was conceived between the emperor and the empress. Despite being close to my father, mother still possessed the title of concubine wife. For me to inherit the throne, she would have to be made empress. Naruto then looked even more confused. Then what's the point for the emperor having a big harem? Wouldn't that cause infighting? The blonde sweat dropped when Nunnally's eye became more like a white cloud of exasperation. The harem existed as sort of like a backup plan. I don't need to remind you that the lives of royal family members are almost constantly in danger. Assassinations, accidents, war and many other factors could lead to the death of the royal family. What if in the off chance the entire royal family turns up dead? If there is no emperor, empress and heir to rule, then who would lead the nation? That's where the harem plan steps in, so the emperor or empress would leave behind several children of royal blood in case the worst case scenario happened and someone needed to step up as the future ruler. After hearing her explanation and thinking over for a bit, Naruto gave Nunnally a serious look. The young woman only smiled kindly at him in return. You don't need to worry about me trying to create an assassination plot to claim the throne. I would never do anything that would place little Lihua in harm's way. I don't care that she is the future empress of our nation. She is and always will be my dear little sister whom I love dearly. I would do everything to ensure her happiness and the prosperity of our nation. Naruto raised his eyebrow in inquiry at her last words. Nunnally didn't hesitate in answering him. I love this nation almost as much as my parents and little sister. I want to see it prosper and its people become happy. That is why I dedicated my whole childhood for studying and training, economics, social affairs, military affairs, governing. I learned it all with the help of my father, who provided the best teachers available. I even made sure to receive combat training as well. Unlike the nobles who like to sit on their asses all the time, I would rather help our nation grow. Damn right. Naruto wholeheartedly agreed, moving his hand in front of her with the palm open. At first, she was confused by his action, but then quickly understood what he wanted and with a smirk, gave him a high five. And that's not all. My mother also shared my views about our country, and she actually became a spy for my father. She mingled among the nobles and the other harem wives and reported any suspicious behavior directly to father. She even spied on her parents who are, well, to be more accurate, they were my grandparents, you see. My mother's family used to be one of the top noble families within China. In fact, they possessed so much influence that they actually planned to stage a revolt and overthrow my father. They wanted to use my mother as an assassin against the emperor. But we couldn't accuse them of treason without evidence, so me and my mother pretended to be on their side, but in actuality were gathering proof to use against them. It took a while, but eventually we gathered enough incriminating evidence to declare them as traitors. Naruto leaned in so he could hear better in what happened next. The very same day after my grandparents were declared as traitors, father's soldiers raided the family compound, and I was the one who led the raid. We arrested everyone who was inside and sent them straight to prison. With that done, I thought that the Lee noble family would be erased from the records permanently, but father had other ideas. He instead offered my mother to become the new family head and reform it, but she refused and passed on that title to me instead. I was hesitant to accept, but with the encouragement from mother, father and Fen as well, I accepted the position as the new head of the Lee family, Nunnally declared proudly. So what happened next? Naruto asked. Well, it took some broken bodies, broken buildings and lots of cannibals. Cannibals? Nunnally only smirked at him. Once again, you really don't want to know anyway. It took me several months to flush out the remnants of my grandparents' supporters, and with that finally done I was able to cement my position as the new family head. Also, becoming a true member of the imperial court gave more freedom and taking action for the betterment of our country. I rebuilt my noble family from the ground up and changed many of their old policies. Of course, the other noble families didn't like, and still don't, how I don't conduct myself as a true noble, well, that is at least according to their standards, but it didn't matter how much they complained as they couldn't do anything about it. I had the emperor's full support through my efforts. The Li family once again became one of the top nobles families in the Chinese Federation. That's amazing. To completely fix your family mistakes and to achieve such a high position while still being so young is nothing short but incredible, Naruto praised as the young woman mumbled a silent thanks for his words. She felt a bit embarrassed at being praised like that. For all of my contributions to our nation after I became the family head, I was allowed by father to attend the imperial meetings where the most loyal and most influential leaders gathered, ranging from various military generals to our brightest scientific minds. Each of them were allowed to say their thoughts about country matters and provide suggestions or ideas to the emperor. The meetings were so exclusive that I was actually the very first official noble allowed to attend them. The other nobles even now aren't allowed to attend these meetings simply because it's clear that all they care about is expanding their own influence. Nunnally then smiled brightly at Naruto. Life seemed to be so perfect back then. After I became the new family head, my mother was relieved of her duties as a concubine, but that was something she herself wanted. She instead was assigned as one of the ministers of foreign affairs. She always had a knack for diplomacy, so she adapted quite well to her new position. Another thing I should mention is that her job as a spy is still ongoing. During her trips to other countries, she always keeps an eye out for any suspicious activity that might bring harm to our country. As for Fen Yanhua, because of how popular she was with the common people, father allowed her to become the spokeswoman for the people. She would often organize festivals and charity events with backing from the throne. As for little Lihua Sai, despite how much I wanted to, I wasn't able to spend much time with her. My duties as the head of the family, plus some extra duties that were assigned to me by father, kept me extremely busy. During the years, the number of times I actually interacted with her can be counted with both hands. Honestly, I don't think little Lihua even realizes that she has an older sister. Nonetheless, I still love her very much and watch over her very carefully, making sure that there are always other guards close by to protect her besides you. Not only that, I'm also the one who selects her classes, so she would be properly prepared for when it's time for her to become Empress of the Chinese Federation. Wow, you really love her, don't you? Naruto commented with a smile and then looked directly into her eyes. Alright, now I believe is a good time for you to explain how you are the one at fault for the kidnapping event from several days ago. Yes, I'm about to answer that. Nunnally's voice was filled with clear sadness as she began explaining. After Lihua's mother passed away, my whole world came crashing down. It created scars within our family that will never heal. She then looked away in shame, and out of all of us, little Lihua was the one most devastated. She became extremely reclusive and insecure, as if all life was sucked out of her. Yeah, that's exactly how she was when I first met her, Naruto softly agreed, remembering the scared girl Tianzi used to be before she opened up to him as Lihua. I tried everything I could to help her, but with the Empress' death, the nobles saw this as a perfect opportunity to take control of our nation's future. They are trying to manipulate the future Empress into becoming a mindless pawn for them, Naruto stated. During social gatherings, he would always stick close to Lihua and wouldn't allow for the stuck-up nobles to surround her. I had to redouble my efforts to ensure that those damn eunuchs didn't do anything stupid that could endanger the empire, but I have my limits. Naruto, there is only so much I can do. Time is running out, and my little sister is nowhere near ready to lead our nation. Even worse, our father's, Emperor Yao's health is declining, and she might be forced to take the throne early, whether she likes or not. At that statement, Naruto looked at Nunnally with slight anger in his eyes. You don't believe Lihua will be able to lead us, do you? The older sister nodded with a defeated look on her face. She's too young, Naruto. The eunuchs would take advantage of her the moment she sits on the throne. I had to do what I could to protect her, but things started to change after you came along, the dirty ragtag child that Jin had brought from the desert, she said, remembering the day when the Grandmaster of the Shaolin monks returned from his mission carrying a sleeping boy, a boy who looked like he hadn't cleaned himself in years. Because of you, Lihua's condition has improved and she is slowly returning to the energetic young lady she once was, Nunnally stated gently. If you say so, personally, I don't believe I did anything that much, Naruto honestly commented, missing the older sister's dumbfounded look that clearly said really. Despite what you say, your arrival here had a positive effect on her, so, you must have done something right. The young woman shook her head in disbelief before regaining her calm composure, but unfortunately, her recovery is too slow, and time is still at the essence, so out of desperation, I made a big mistake. At those words, she clenched her hands into fists. Thanks to mother and my own network of spies operating outside our border, I came across a very distressing piece of information. A certain country has slowly started mobilizing its military. Let me guess, Naruto gave a knowing look. Britannia. A solemn nod was his answer. Britannia is preparing for war against us. I've received reports that they started increasing production of weapons and military vehicles. Small scouting units, day and night, watch our borders closely, probing it for weakness. We even caught some their own spies trying to infiltrate us. But we couldn't extract any information out of them as they committed suicide upon capture. She frowned heavily at her next words. I was pressed for ideas on how to protect our homeland, since Lihua is not ready to take the throne from our father. Wo's health is slowly declining, so, in a desperate attempt to buy us some time, I organized a meeting between myself and a representative from Britannia. To my surprise, the representative turned out to be someone who I had never expected. Schneasel al Britannia, with a voice full of venom, she said Prince's name. Naruto was surprised to hear it, but then quickly remembered how good at sweet-talking and acting the Prince Charming was. He only started showing his true colors after Aloy's death and when he tried to put all the blame on Naruto. He told me that Britannia's nobility wants to invade China, claiming that we are a threat to Britannia's status as the most powerful country, so, Schneasel proposed me a deal, which for me felt like it was a deal with the devil. Considering the guy's character, Naruto could not help but nod in agreement. I would lower security during the annual meeting between the Britannia's ambassador and Emperor Yao, and during the event, he would send in Britannia's most elite soldiers disguised as bandits to kidnap Lihua Tianzi. And you agreed to that? Naruto shouted out in outrage. Unfortunately there's more, she said. Tianzi would have been taken out of the country and then would have been rescued by conveniently placed Britannia's soldiers. Afterwards, she would have been moved to Britannia for her own safety and protection, but in reality, she would have been held as a hostage to keep the Chinese Federation in line. Britannia's nobles would lose their excuse to invade China, and with no heir present, he would have been made heir to the throne by default. Naruto finished. It's not like I want the damn title, but at that time I saw no other way out. He told me that if I didn't accept the deal, Britannia would declare war after the annual meeting between Britannia's ambassador and the emperor. They would unleash their full military might, bringing destruction and death to the nation we bled and sacrificed so much for. So I agreed, Nunnally stated, her eyes becoming misty as she tried to explain her reasoning. But you endangered your own little sister, your own family. Naruto scolded, how could you do this to her? Do you think I really wanted to do this? The older sister snapped. Of course I was disgusted by what he proposed. I wanted to kill him where he stood, right there and then. But I had no other choice. It was the only way to ensure China's survival. He promised me that Lihua would be kept safe and absolutely no harm would ever befall her during her stay in Britannia. Everything she would have ever needed would have been taken care of, along with continuing her studies when things died down. When I accepted the deal, it felt like I was ripping my heart out. I made the bastard repeatedly swear, with my hand squeezing his throat, that Lihua would be kept safe. Naruto sighed as he gave a weak smile. He at least fulfilled that part of the deal. I mean, when I got to her the kidnappers practically held her like a baby. She even slept through the whole explosion and fighty. Explosion, Nunnally exclaimed in alert. Ah, sorry, Shifu told me to keep that detail a secret or Emperor Yao would castrate me and afterwards slowly beat me to death with my own tool. Naruto shuddered as he really didn't want to see that happening ever. Anyways, the girl continued while glaring slightly at Naruto, with me changing the guard shift's rotations and Schneasel's elite soldiers disguised as bandits, it was all too easy to kidnap little Lihua. I even made sure that city guard patrols would be arranged in a way that the kidnappers could escape without being interrupted. She then added, and you were also involved in this plan. Wait, me? Naruto looked surprised. How? I had my agents tracking you since the moment Master Jin announced you as his apprentice. I even had people watching you when you took baths with your personal attendants, and I must say, for a strong fighter you are quite easily subdued by those three ladies. The sister of Tianzi gave a small smirk upon witnessing Naruto's blush at that particular detail. Still, despite gathering all available information about you and planning accordingly, it all proved to be for naught as you surpassed all of my expectations, probably for the best. She shrugged, knowing that her miscalculation was a blessing in disguise. So how was Alois involved in this whole scheme? Naruto inquired. He was included as an insurance in case someone, in this case you, actually managed to catch up with the kidnappers. His mission was to stop the pursuers and then eliminate them. Schneasel wanted to make sure that his plan could still be salvaged in case the worst case scenario happened, the young woman explained. No wonder he tried to take control of the jeep back then. Naruto muttered, wait, does that mean the Monica was also? Nunnally interrupted him as she expecting him to ask that. No, and to be honest, I still don't know why she was included. I was thinking that maybe she was brought along as Alois insurance, just in case he needed someone to cover for him, giving her sincere offer for help. I believe she was never told about the plot. So she's ignorant of the truth, huh? Naruto sighed before smiling. Monica seemed to be an honest girl, and he did enjoy talking to her during the event until he remembered that she might have unknowingly signed his death papers. The silence was all Nunnally needed for her to continue. As you can probably tell, Schneizel is a master at hiding his true intentions, she stated, shocking Naruto slightly. Was that prick really that hard for others to read? It was kinda odd that Naruto saw and felt the negativity rolling off that asshole in waves. From the teen's perspective, that guy was practically screaming untrustworthy. If anything, I think Schneizel used Monika's honorable nature as a tool to make her and Aloy's offer for help more sincere. After a moment of speculation, the U-lady continued, and now comes the part of the plan where I had to create a diversion for the Britannia soldiers. So you are the one responsible for causing the first explosion? Naruto guessed. Correct, it was simple, really. I used a few extra loud explosive grenades in an empty hall next to the throne room, and the loud noise covered the sound of explosives set off by the disguised soldiers. Their explosives were different, as they only had enough destructive capabilities to make a small breach for soldiers to infiltrate, but what the explosives lacked in power. They more than made up in making less sound. With my help, their entry went perfectly unnoticed. Misdirection is always a powerful tool, if used right, she listed off with a proud smile, before fake coughing loudly after she realized that she was describing Tianzi's kidnapping plan, and it was not the time to feel proud. To continue from where I left off. I was in contact with the prince during the entire event via a small communicator that was hidden behind my ear, she explained as she placed a very small, almost see-through earpiece. We had received an update from Alois that you had managed to catch with the soldier's escape vehicle and quite violently stopped it. He then reported that despite losing a few men, the plan was still on track. He pretended to fight against his allies while the disguised soldiers would knock out Monika and bring her to Britannia after dealing with you. That does explain why Monika was actually winning her fight against a clearly stronger opponent, Naruto commented. So, her enemy was holding back, his attacks were aimed at incapacitating and knocking her out instead of injuring her. Exactly, and as the battle raged on, Alois realized that he had severely underestimated both you and Monika. You, Naruto, had defeated two of his elite soldiers, while Monika was close to winning her fight. Her opponent might have been holding back, but he was still a very experienced soldier, and Alois expected him to win fast. He stated that the sudden turn of events should not have been possible. And here we are now, Naruto said sheepishly, a wide smile crossing his face, showed him. Indeed, and for that I thank you, not as a leader of a noble family, but as the older sister of the girl you swore to protect, she bowed respectfully. But now despite successfully fulfilling your duties, I have terrible news to deliver, my emperor, you can come in. Nunnally called out. The said man entered the room with a solemn look on his face. So, are you done? Have you told him everything? Yes, Fa my emperor, all that remains is to deliver the news, she answered while bowing in respect. The emperor himself looked at her sadly for a few moments before he walked up to Naruto and placed his hands on the teen's shoulders. My boy, this is not easy to say, but even if the investigation of my daughter's kidnapping concluded that neither the Chinese Federation nor the Britannia Empire were the conspirators behind the plot, retribution must still be paid from our side, Yao frowned sadly. What? Naruto looked a bit scared, what do you mean? Britannia wants satisfaction, or it would be more accurate to say, the bloodthirsty Britannian nobles and the emperor's children are the ones who want to go to war for the death of one of their decorated knights of the round. Even if our nations were proven to be not responsible for the kidnapping plot, the investigation results showed that Alois was innocent as well. Since no evidence was found linking him to the kidnappers, Yao's first daughter explained to the confused blonde, the only one who is against a war from their side is none other than Charles V. Britannia himself. As odd as that may sound, he instead proposes an alternative solution which entails with us handing over the murderer of Alois, and you know what this means, don't you? Naruto's eyes widened as his blood went cold. Why yes, the blonde shakily answered, and then became surprised when the emperor started petting him on the head. You don't have to go if you don't want to, Yao offered while his daughter looked at him as if he went insane. They are clearly at fault, even if they say otherwise. I'm prepared to go to war with them, but something tells me that you won't let that happen, will you? He frowned when Naruto shook his head. My duty is to protect our country and most importantly, our princess no matter the cost, the blonde martial artist stated with an empty tone. Yao nodded firmly in acceptance as he walked away from his youngest daughter's only friend. Naruto, right now you may be thinking that you are nothing more than a mere tool for me to use, but I assure that you are anything but that. To me, you are not just my youngest daughter's bodyguard, but also a precious family member as well, Yao stated gently, as if triggered by the emperor's words. Naruto suddenly gripped his head as he was assaulted by a sudden burst of intense pain. Tianzi's older sister quickly rushed to his side in worry. In Naruto's mind, an old memory had resurfaced itself, even if for a few short moments. Zabuza needed me, I don't mind being used as a tool, as long as he can achieve his dreams. An image of delicate boy that could be easily be confused for a girl flashed through Naruto's mind. I fought for no one else but myself. I regret not telling him how much he really meant to me. An image of a dying man with razor-sharp teeth flashed through Naruto's mind. Few minutes had passed and the pain inside the blonde's head finally subsided, much to his relief. Well, he really wanted to know who the two people were from those short memories. He decided to put that off for later and instead focused on the situation at hand. "When do I leave?" he asked. Despite clearly being worried over Naruto's condition, Nunnally still answered his question. "In 2 days' time Britannia will send Schneizel, Monica, and another knight of the round with her squad to take you to their country," she said as Naruto gently grabbed her arm when she placed around his head, clutching it tightly for comfort. All of his effort, all the hard work, all the blood, sweat and tears he shed for his beloved nation, and Liyue will be taken away from him. XXXXXXXXXX. 1 day later. XXXXXXXXXX. One more day, Naruto muttered while pacing back and forth around a room that looked like it belonged to someone of incredible wealth. For his last 2 days in China, he was forced to live in a safe house that was outside the main city. This was done to ensure that nothing happened to him until the representatives arrived, but Naruto knew it was more like a holding cell to prevent him from escaping. Of course, Naruto would never abandon his country, but some of the nobles thought otherwise and demanded that he be put under some sort of surveillance. As a compromise, he was placed in this house. "Naruto." The blonde was broken out his thoughts when he heard Liyue's older sister call his name. He looked towards the safe house entrance and saw Nunnally enter the room while carrying various food products, most likely for him to enjoy some fine cuisine before being taken away. Back. My last supper?" the blonde asked sarcastically. The girl's lips became a thin line as she didn't want to answer the question. "Sorry, I thought I would make your final stay here a bit more comfortable by preparing a home-cooked meal," she said, while small tears started rolling down her cheeks. "It's all my fault. If it wasn't for my moment of weakness you wouldn't have to go through such punishment. I should be the one sent away, not you." Naruto slammed his hand against a wall before quickly marching toward Nunnally. Said woman started backing away from him, but it wasn't long before she reached the wall behind her. Once the blonde was right in front of her, he placed both of his hands to the sides of her head and against the wall. "Enough already. If you want to continue the pity party, do it somewhere else," Naruto stated while looking straight into her eyes. But Nunnally stuttered while looking down. "I said enough." "Yes, you made a mistake by giving in to your fears, and it ended up costing us immensely," Naruto scolded as the girl looked up at him with regret-filled eyes, with tears still rolling down her cheeks. "What you should have done is found another way. If you were that scared that Tianzi is not ready to rule, then you should have told the emperor in the first place. Instead of making a rash decision all by yourself." The older sister's teary eyes widened at his words. "Despite being smart as genius, you forgot one crucial thing: the emperor values everyone's opinions. Yours especially. If you had told him sooner, you both could have worked to come up with a solution. Hell, he might have even made you teach Tianzi and how to run her country." But Nunnally tried to protest. "You are his daughter," Naruto roared as the girl's eyes lit up with sudden realization. "So what if you have lower status? So what if he and your mother didn't end up together? You're still family, are you not?" he proclaimed, reminding her of the strong bond she shares between her father and her little sister. The girl's legs gave way as she slumped onto the floor, Naruto's words hitting back and forth in her heart and soul. "What have I done? Because of what I did my sister will lose her precious first friend, someone who was helping her to regain her courage. Jin will be forced to find someone else to take Naruto's place, even though he already had the best apprentice one could hope for. And their father's health will continue to worsen due to stress from this whole ordeal." Before despair could fully consume her, a pair of arms gently gripped her shoulders. She slowly looked up and was surprised that the teen's expression was not longer one of anger, but of gentleness and sadness. "What's done is done and can no longer be changed. Instead of wallowing in regret, focus on the present and the future. If you really want to make up for your mistakes, then start by confessing everything to the emperor and Tianzi, and I do mean everything," Naruto repeated firmly. "If they choose to forgive you, don't let that chance go to waste. I will no longer be able to help our little lady grow, so you will have to do it in my stead. Teach her everything she needs to know about being a great leader and make sure she is always protected." Nunnally silently muttered. Naruto smiled and gently wiped away her tears. "Liyue will be the future empress of the nation we love, guard her well, so for when the time comes to claim the throne, she would be ready to face everything the world throws at her?" Naruto asked. The older sister could only nod slowly, as words failed to come out. After a few moments of silence passed, Nunnally stood up and looked resolutely at the blonde. "I promise, Naruto, I promise that if I'm forgiven, I will do everything in my power to help Liyue Tianzi become the greatest empress to ever rule the Chinese Federation. I will go tell them everything right now, but I won't be able to return." "Just go," Naruto said, then, for some unknown reason, he couldn't stop himself from grinning widely while petting her head. "Heh, I only just recently got to know you, and I can already tell you're quite a stiff, but I like that about you." A slight blush dusted the girl's cheeks as meekly nodded at the compliment and then left the room. After exiting the building and beginning her trek back to the palace, Nunnally could not help but wonder. What if Naruto had been made her guardian instead? Little Lihua's maybe she wouldn't have made all those mistakes and her life would have been so much brighter. XXXXXXXXXX. Nighttime. Imperial Palace of the Chinese Emperor. XXXXXXXXXX. Tianzi entered the throne room where her father and Jin were waiting for her. "Father. Why did you ask me to come?" she asked while scanning the room for Naruto, but was a disappointment when she couldn't find him. He was now gone for the whole day since she and Jin left for the city. "There is someone who wishes to speak with you," the emperor stated before gazing at the front doors. "You may enter." The doors slowly opened and to reveal Tianzi's older sister, she looked forlorn at the three, while slowly approaching the young heiress. "Hello Lihua," she greeted respectfully. "I am Nunnally Li, head of the noble Li family." "You am I know who you are, I've seen you at the imperial court and during parties father hosted," the white-haired princess replied meekly as she wondered why this stranger is coming towards her. "Once close enough," Nunnally smiled kindly as she lowered her gaze to meet Lihua's. She started after taking a moment to recollect herself. "I am your sister." The younger female took a step back after hearing the statement as sister. "Why you're my sister?" But mother never told me I had one even before she passed away." Nunnally continued to smile kindly. "I am your half-sister, little Lihua. I was born from a different mother, but we share the same father." The younger girl quickly turned her head to see her father, who for the first time in quite a while, looked embarrassed and ashamed. "She is telling the truth," he confirmed Nunnally's words. "You're my sister." Lihua slowly muttered those words, still trying to wrap her mind around the fact that she has an older sibling. "Yes, I am your sister and I'm sorry," Nunnally confessed while looking down at the ground in shame. "For everything that had transpired a few days ago, all of it is my fault. If only I had been more wise and braver, none of it would have happened." What do you mean?" "Please explain," Tianzi asked shakily. The older sibling hesitated when she looked at her sister's worried expression. She wanted to tell everything, but the words just seemed to be stuck in her throat. Seeing the hesitation with her older sister's eyes, Lihua surprised everyone in the throne room when she suddenly schooled her expression and in an authoritative voice asked her question again. "I want you to explain to me what you meant when you said all of it is your fault." Upon hearing the commanding tone of her younger sister, Nunnally's hesitation had disappeared. For the next couple of hours, she explained everything and held nothing back. Lihua carefully listened and only asked questions when she didn't fully understand something. The two men in the room, who remained silent throughout the explanation, became slightly worried when the usually shy girl started glaring at her half-sister. By the end of the story, you're the reason why Naruto is in trouble. "I am," Nunnally confirmed without hesitation. "And yet you have the gall to ask me for forgiveness? After everything you put Naruto through?" The white-haired girl stated with tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. "If I could, I would take it all back, but I can't, and now I will have to forever bear the consequences of my actions," Nunnally added sadly. The young princess turned away as her heart was riddled with various emotions. Betrayal, hate, sadness, so many conflicting feelings were twisting inside her chest, and she wasn't sure how to make sense from any of it. "Father, you never told me what Britannia wanted in return for Aloy's death," Tianzi suddenly asked her father, who was sitting uncomfortably on his throne. For the death of one of their knights of the round, they had asked only for one thing: to hand over Naruto to their custody. "We're still not exactly sure what they intend to do with him, but it is quite possible that they might want to execute him in order to quell the anger of their nobles," Yao answered in an empty tone. Tianzi's eyes widened in shock. "They're going to kill him?" Play Naruto soundtrack, sadness and sorrow. "It is a possibility, yes," the older sister stated softly, "but even if it did really come down to execution, he would gladly give up his life for us." "What do you mean, Nunnally?" Yao inquired, confused at his eldest daughter's words. "I have observed Naruto for a long time, and after finally getting to meet him in person, I now understand that he is a man that is not afraid of putting his life on the line for those who are precious to him and his country," the girl explained with quivering lips, doing her best not to break down. "He would rather sooner die than let any of you suffer." "Stop it," Tianzi requested as she too was about to lose her calm composure. Tears started flowing down Nunnally's cheeks while her eyes remained focused on her little sister. "Lihua, you're welcome to hate me all you want, I deserve it all for what I did, but please don't hate Naruto for his decision. He is the very definition of loyalty." The young woman then got down to her hands and knees and bowed her head so low that it actually touched the ground. "He might not say it outright, but we are all that he has in his life, and he would rather die than let any of us suffer, especially you, Lihua." Me, the white-haired girl thought to herself. She remembered how from the very first day she met him, Naruto had always been by her side, always there to pick her up whenever she stumbled, always there to comfort her when fear and loneliness closed in on her heart, when she finally started to gain more confidence in herself. Naruto would say it was thanks to all the effort she put in towards improving herself, and she wanted to believe that too. But she knew she was only deceiving herself, he was the true reason for her getting stronger, and she wanted to continue growing stronger with him by her side. But now that dream will forever be lost, and I will never be able to see his smile again, no. She cried out in her mind. Without a second thought, Tianzi turned around and ran out of the room. Lihua. Yao cried out in worry, where was she going? The emperor's bodyguard's eyes closed as he walked towards the same direction Tianzi ran off to. Yao, my friend, for now let her be, she needs some time alone to sort out the feelings inside her heart, don't worry, I will follow close behind to ensure her safety, meanwhile, you have your own thoughts to sort out. With those words, the Jin bowed curtly and then rushed after the young princess. I will also go. Yao's firstborn daughter, Nunnally, cried out and then quickly left to chase after her little sister too. Left alone in the throne room, the emperor fell into contemplation, tried to process what he already knew and what had been recently revealed by Nunnally. At that moment, it felt like the whole world was placed upon his shoulders and the decisions he will be forced to make will have severe repercussions in the future. XXXXXXXXXXX. Next day morning. XXXXXXXXXX. You ready? Naruto nodded as Li Wei, one of the few monks he trusted with any of his secrets, drove him towards the destination where the Britannia's envoys would meet him to be transported. Yeah, he replied somehow loud enough for Li Wei to hear him over the loud engine of the vehicle. Li, make sure you. I know Naruto, the monk cut off the blonde while looking knowingly into the distance. He or she most likely will never be as good as you, but we will do our best to find someone to replace you as Lady Tianzi's personal bodyguard, but just know that no one will ever be able to replace you as her friend. Thanks Lee. Naruto smiled sadly, for everything. After driving for several more minutes, the transportation truck finally came to a stop and the driver's head lowered as he hated to say the next words. We're here. The monk's grip on the wheel increased so much that he could easily bend it he wanted to. As for Naruto himself, he jumped from the back of the truck before slapping it several times. You can leave, I rather be alone for this, the blonde said. After several moments the truck turned around and left without the blonde looking back to see it off. He instead faced forward and spotted a large, extravagant boat with two women standing in front of it and soldiers surrounding them. One of the women was Monica, someone he already knew, but the other one he wasn't familiar with. If the teen guessed right, she was almost a decade older than him and had short pale green hair with long bangs on the sides of her face. The left bang was done in braid while the other was normal. She wore the same Knight of the Round outfit as Alois had, save for the cape that was light purple in color, and she had a leather belt and a gun holstered on her left hip. The older woman crossed her as she looked at Naruto with intrigued eyes. So that kid was the one who killed Alois. Heh, I should buy him a drink and have tell me all about it. Lady Nonette. Monica exclaimed in a chastising tone while the soldiers surrounding them became a bit more tense. What? The guy was a prick and too stuffy, always preaching about Britannia this and Britannia that. It's as if he was some sort of fanatical leader of an equally fanatical cult. I'm glad has 6 feet under, and rolling over the woman, now identified as Nonette, nonchalant replied. Monica chose to remain silent as she didn't want to badmouth her previous teacher, although, deep inside she felt that the man deserved his fate. For now, she had to keep her inner thoughts at bay and show Naruto no kindness. She was ordered to bring him in no matter what, even the use of force was authorized. But she hoped it wouldn't come down to that as she really wanted to make a positive connection with him later on. Sighed. Well, here I am, Naruto said after approaching the two women. The older one nodded while pointing at the boar behind her. Indeed you are, well then, come aboard, the green-haired knight ordered while Naruto did as he was told. Don't worry kid, you will not be harmed in any way. She smiled at him in a friendly manner after placing her hand on his shoulder. Alright men. Get that engine running. We're leaving in 10 minutes. After boarding the ship, Naruto moved to the corner with Monica following him a few feet away, just to make sure he didn't try to leave. I know I should be the last person asking this, but were you able to say your goodbyes to everyone? Monica inquired, making Naruto look down slightly in shame. I did, but not to the one that really matters, Naruto replied, feeling terrible as he didn't tell his best friend about the departure. Naruto. No way. Naruto looked absolutely shocked after hearing his name being called out by a voice that he knew quite well. He quickly turned his head to the side and spotted Tianzi running towards the ship with her older sister and his Shifu following close behind her. A little further behind he spotted Li Wei waving at him while standing in front of his truck. Lihua the blonde moved briskly towards the ship's edge, only for Nonette's arm to block his way. You can say your goodbyes but not a single foot off this ship, she declared before retracting her arm, same goes for them, not a single foot on this ship or we'll be forced to take this as a declaration of war, she stated, clearly hating the order she was given. Naruto nodded in understanding and quickly pushed his arms forward, Tianzi, stop. If you come any closer, you will be declaring war on Britannia. I don't care. I'll declare war on the whole world if I have to. She shouted defiantly after reaching the ship, Naruto, please don't leave. You're my only friend and I cannot lose you. Before she could step onto the deck, Naruto took a step forward, placing himself at the very edge of the boat and only a few inches away from his friend, his little lady, his sole reason for living. I can't as much as I want to, I can't. If I don't do this, Master Jin, Emperor Yao, your older sister Nunnally and most importantly you will suffer for it. But it's not fair, you never did nothing wrong. She reasoned while grabbing his arm. Some of the Britannia soldiers prepared to take aim, but were stopped when Nanette lifted her arm to hold their fire. Please stay, Naruto, I don't want to be alone again, not again, Lihua pleaded with tears running down her cheeks. The more he looked at her sorrow-filled face, the more Naruto felt his heart break. Despite all of this being Britannia's fault, Naruto could not help but blame himself as well. If only he hadn't been so brash, so full of himself, maybe this would have never happened. With a defeated look he tried to think of something, anything that could bring comfort to his charge, and then, like a ray of light, an idea came to his mind. What if I promise to come back? It might take years, but I will definitely come back. And you know me, I never break my promises. Really? You promise? She asked before Naruto nearly fell forward as the boat was about to move. Ah, Naruto. She cried as she felt him pulling away bit by bit. Yes. I'll come back to you. I promise. Naruto said as he held back his tears for a bright smile and lightly kissed her hand. The Princess of China nodded as she sealed the promise by kissing his hand as well. I know you will. As she leaned forward as their grip was slipping. Then their hands finally let go as Naruto couldn't hold on anymore. The last thing both of them saw were their tear-riddled faces full of grief. Naruto. Jiang, Lihua whispered softly before she fell to her knees and wept. Both Jin and Nunnally quickly embraced her, trying their best to comfort her. Both of them then looked towards the retreating boat and swore that for as long as they lived, they will do everything in their power to ensure that Naruto and Lihua meet again. Back on the boat, Monica stared at Naruto, who remained standing in the same spot. Knowing that his heart was in turmoil, she slowly began approaching him, but just as she was about to speak up, her new teacher gently grasped her shoulder. Don't, give him time. They watched as the young guardian just kept staring into the distance with eyes full pain. To him, losing his best friend was the same as having a big chunk of his soul ripped off, and all that was left in its place was regret and sorrow. XXXXXXXXXX. Line break. Several days later. XXXXXXXXXX. Father, I'm going to take my lessons with older sister now, Tianzi informed after she and father had their morning tea. The leader of the country nodded in approval. Very well, if you need help with anything, don't hesitate in approaching me, I will always find time for you, Yao offered before Tianzi bowed to him and left. The emperor sighed as he leaned into his chair. It's been a few days since Naruto left China, there was no word of him since his departure, and as much as he wanted to at least check on the young boy, he couldn't. Lest he risked going to war with Britannia.